brilliant psychiatrist. You don't become the chairman of the psychiatry department at Mount Sinai Medical Center without being brilliant. But he's no longer at Mount Sinai Hospital because he is pursuing not only his psychiatric occupation and career, but through his book, Many Lives, Many Masters, which I'll let you define it. For those people, there might be some people out there that have no idea what this is about. He now has a brand new book out called Through Time into Healing, Discovering the Power of Regression Therapy to Erase Trauma and Transform Mind, Body, and Relationships. We're talking about past lives and past life regressions. And as we go through our night together, if you have any experiences you'd like to share, and I know many of you do, or any questions or comments on all of this, please do join in. Those numbers, Broward 525-3193, Dade 653-8811. And Brian, it is so good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you, Sandy. It's great to be back here again.
I can't believe this. I leave you with a best-selling book. I come back, you've got another best-selling book.
That's what happens.
I think I'll go off the air for another 2 years, and then you'll have another best-selling book. This is wonderful. Explain for those people who, for some reason, did not read Many Lives, Many Masters. Give a brief overview of that as we get into this.
Sure. That was the first book, and what happened to me, as you said, I came over to Mount Sinai Medical Center as chairman of psychiatry. I was trained very conservatively at Yale University, emphasizing biological psychiatry, this type of thing, publishing lots of papers, and really had not much of a belief at all in parapsychology or this kind of thing, ESP. I had to see it to believe it, what we call left brain, very rational. I had this fascinating patient at Mount Sinai shortly after I came over, a young woman with phobias, panic attacks, depression. I had treated her for a year and a half without using any medicine. She had a fear of gagging. Finally, I used hypnosis to try to go back into her childhood to find out why she wasn't getting better. Did she have some forgotten or repressed memories? In using hypnosis, I asked her one day, go back to the time from which your symptoms first arise, and she flipped back about 4,000 years into some ancient Near Eastern lifetime, different body, different hair, different face. I thought this was fantasy or imagination, but I couldn't imagine why was she doing this. She hadn't done it for a year and a half. She went through this lifetime, died in a flood or tidal wave, and her lifelong fear of gagging or choking disappeared. And in our therapy then, I continued doing this, even though I had trouble believing it, and yet it was working. I couldn't explain why it was so effective. And that was the beginning. Since then, I've done this with about 400 more people individually, many more in groups. It's not that difficult to do. Other therapists in this country are now doing this. I wasn't the first, but I thought I was. I thought I was discovering the wheel, and I wasn't, and yet people were afraid to go public. People were afraid of their reputations and careers and of being considered weird or strange or crazy. That held me back for 4 years. It took me 4 years to write Many Lives. And then the new book, Through Time, is really continuing cases, 40 more of the, I think, the best cases, and some of the best cases of other psychiatrists and other physicians and other therapists to show that it's not just me and not just Catherine, the woman in Many Lives. And now I'm doing this to heal relationships. We find people are repeating patterns that may have been going on for lifetimes, for physical maladies such as neck pains and certain forms of arthritis, musculoskeletal disorders, for psychological symptoms like panic attacks, fears, phobias, fear of water, fear of whatever, and we find drowning. Even for obesity, I'm finding that in cases not of 5 pounds or 10 pounds, but 40 or more, I've had more than a dozen cases now of people remembering dying in the Holocaust, of starvation, or of sexual abuse, not necessarily in this life. And they're keeping that weight on as protection now, not to have that happen again, or not to be attractive to men, or not to die of wasting away, even though there are no reasons now for them to do that. And having discovered the cause, the real cause, they're able to lose the weight and stop this sawtooth pattern of weight loss, weight gain, get down to a certain amount, get anxious, gain the weight back again. So I'm using it in a host of conditions.
But you can't use it for everybody.
No, it's not for everybody.
How do you know who's regressible and who is not?
I don't always know that right away. I know who's hypnotizable. I can tell that by the eyes. There's certain tests, an eye roll test, which I showed Oprah Winfrey and Sally Jesse Raphael, and I said to Oprah Winfrey, Oprah, you'd really go under deeply, but she's a little nervous about it yet, so...
Oh, so you test people to see if they're hypnotizable.
Yeah.
Because I've never been hypnotized, and I think part of it is because I never allowed myself to be hypnotized, but I don't know if I'm so that's interesting.
Well, part of the test is rolling your eyes up as high as you can, trying to look at the top of your head, and then keeping your eyes up there, slowly closing your eyelids. Let them just flutter over the white. So Sandy's doing that right now.
I do that. Let me sit there. Take over for a while.
Well, I'm talking right. Here you go. You're doing it. You can go. You can do it. But there are two parts. One is the physical part. That's that. And 85% of people can be hypnotized physically. And the other 15% with practice can go into a light state. But as you mentioned, you can block it psychologically. If you don't want to, you won't. Now, hypnosis, that's just a form of focused concentration. When we all get hypnotized every day, when you're driving your car and you lose the last
I get hypnotized race walking every day.
Right, so you can.
I do. I literally become hypnotized, and I know that because people have gone past me and talked to me, and I never knew it.
Well, that's it. So you can do it. And then the other part is allowing yourself to do it. But you really don't give up control. That's usually what blocks people. They're afraid of giving it up, quacking like a duck, barking like a dog, whatever, and that doesn't happen. It really doesn't. That's stage hypnosis.
When these healings take place, emotionally, physically, whichever, while being regressed into past lives, and then finding out what it was in a past life, I presume, that caused the pain that we bring into this life, although we don't have conscious memory. If we're doing that unconsciously, releasing it, then consciously, how do we know? You play it back for us, or what happens?
I have everybody remember what they're experiencing, so I don't even have to play it back. They're
so
aware.
When you come out of the hypnosis, you remember everything you just saw in past lives?
Yes.
Wow.
And also, hypnosis is not like a time machine. You don't actually become unconscious or go somewhere. You're still aware that you're in an office talking. You're just seeing a scene or feeling it. It doesn't have to be visual. And so you can speak in English, and you can know the year now, and you can tell me what's going on. And you'll remember it, too. It's not, a lot of people say, well, I wasn't really hypnotized, even though they were in a deep state, because they were aware of me talking or of a noise outside. But that's still hypnosis. If you're driving your car and someone honks at you, you'll hear the honk. You'll come out of it. But you still can be in a kind of hypnotized state.
Mm-hmm. You changed dramatically. You really have. And I can say this because as I said, I knew you before you were into all of this. We used to double date. And you were, as you said, you were very scientific.
Yes.
And when you got into this, I thought, boy, this is not the Brian Weiss I used to double date with. This is really amazing.
It changes you so dramatically. That's what happened to me. Values, the way you look at life, what's important, what's less important, relationships, people. It's so mind-boggling because you're finding out that we don't die when the physical body dies. There seems to be a part of us that goes on.
So has that changed? It's changed you personally, that I know. You have become much less stringent, at least from the way I know you, much more open, much less scientific in your approach, although you're a brilliant scientist. There's no doubt about it. But how has it changed the way you look at your own life?
Actually, I want to comment on scientific because I find this so many times. I think of myself as more scientific now because I think of scientific as having an open mind. An open mind means you see things, but you don't judge them. You can observe, you check, you test it, you have other people test it. That's science. But the scientists of Galileo's age, when he discovered that the Earth revolved around the sun and not the other way around, they refused to even look in his telescope because this was heresy, and that's not science. So now I realized that I had a closed mind. I wasn't even considering certain things that I didn't know anything about. That's not science. That's closed-mindedness. So it's changed me in that I'm more open. I'm less judgmental and critical because I realize there's so much that I don't know, that I'm observing, I'm trying to teach, to transmit. But who am I to judge other people? I'm not in their shoes. So I've become much less critical, less stringent, less rigid, less fixed.
And for a doctor, that's amazing.
Well, you're saying the before and after, right? Reineri, they're my toughest group, doctors.
No, well, that's where I was heading. Your peers, however, in the psychiatric community are not, at least were not too thrilled with you. Is there any adjustment today? Is there any more acceptance today, or do they still consider you an embarrassment?
No, I think that there has been no official censure, movement, anything like that, although one was started, I learned afterwards, and someone brought it up at a local psychiatric meeting and said, well, what should we do about Brian Weiss? And that was voted down very quickly, because so many of them I've taught psychopharmacology, brain chemistry. They know me, so they know that I'm not flaky. I'm really quite different from that. But I've had so much support, one at a time, individually. Not public support, not as a group. It's been kind of benign neglect. But individually, so many psychiatrists coming up and saying, you know, I had this fascinating patient, and then they go and describe a near-death experience or floating out of the body, an out-of-body experience, or someone with a spontaneous past life memory, or a child speaking another language. I've heard that from pediatricians. So one at a time, I get a lot of support. As a group, no, but that's fine. I understand. They're afraid.
What are they afraid of?
They're afraid of their careers and reputations and the unknown, and it's so reassuring. You really don't have to be afraid at all. Many, many more are doing this work now. I know so many who have gone public. I'm encouraging doctors to publish their findings, to not necessarily to write books, but to publish articles, to talk about it with their newspapers.
Well, a lot of, I presume, many psychiatrists employ hypnosis in their work. So there had to have been many, many of them who experienced what you experienced but never said anything to the public for the same fears you were talking about.
That's exactly right. That's what's happened. I've had letters or phone calls from hundreds of therapists, psychiatrists, who have had cases like mine or similar to or past lives spontaneously emerging or in dreams or deja vus, because it's not just through hypnosis. Lots of letters, lots of individual support, but the fear of going public because of reprimand, ridicule, whatever, even death in the old days. You see, some of these people might have gone public in past times in Salem or wherever.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So some of them could be closed off because of something they did experience before.
Exactly.
How far back is there, like, generally a certain amount of lifetimes people go back? Is there a range, or is everybody different?
Usually a few, because the relevant ones are what come up. The ones that are important to this lifetime, the problems you're working on now, something that might be causing a fear or phobia or symptom now, those are the ones I usually go to. This is very healing.
Well, how do you do that? If when you go on, your patient goes under hypnosis, whatever problem he or she is having in their present life, how do you say, okay, we're going to go back to the life that caused this problem? You just automatically go there?
They will decide. Their subconscious mind will pick out the one. I will say, go back to where the origins are, the roots are, whichever lifetime, or in childhood. It doesn't have to be a lifetime, or in between, because sometimes these are spiritual experiences. For example, last week on the Sally Jesse show, I was working with some of their volunteers, people who had never been hypnotized before. One was Allie Gertz's mother, Carol. Allie died of AIDS last year. There was a TV movie about her, and Carol, her mother's become very active as an AIDS activist and fundraiser. And she wanted to meet Allie, maybe in a past life. But instead, she went back, met her father, who was in robust, good health, wearing a certain suit, came and he supervised the whole thing with her, talked to her, told her that Allie was okay, she was with him, and he died 28 years ago. This was very vivid to her. It doesn't prove it, but to her it was very moving and healing, because in the few days that elapsed between my working with her and the live taping of the show, she was much better in terms of her grief. But she didn't expect to meet her father. That was a surprise. So I don't always know what's going to happen. Neither does...
So you don't just go chronologically backward?
No.
From the most recent past life to the earliest?
No, you go to the ones that are relevant now, that have something to teach you. And it's your mind.
Doesn't every life, if you believe in past lives, doesn't every life teach you? Isn't that what it's supposed to be?
But say you're working in this life on relationships or on greed or something like that. The ones that have to do with that will be more likely to come up. That's the focus.
Isn't that interesting? So your mind will take you directly to the lives that precipitated what you're working with now.
Yeah, see, in the last 2 years, I've done this with so many more people since you and I talked about it here, and now I can observe patterns. I know more of the details of how this works. It's a hard thing to get a new science going. You know, everything is new, but now I know that there's a tremendous wisdom in the mind, and what requires healing, fixing, that's where the mind goes. It knows what's best. You don't always get what you want, but you will get what you need.
Now, I know you're a psychiatrist, so people come to you for help, but do people ever get to come to you if they just want regression? There's not really anything they're troubled by or want to find out. They just want to experience past lives.
Yes. At first, I didn't do this. Last time we talked, I was seeing people only with symptoms and whatever, but now I realize that healing occurs at so many different levels. It may be grief or something that's been there a long time but kind of chronic. It may be just understanding more. So I don't discriminate now that you have to have a symptom. If it's a healthy curiosity to grow, to learn, to understand more. Because so many people, for example, have a fear of death. And one of the things this kind of therapy does right away is get rid of that fear of death. You learn what death is. So
you learn there is no death.
That's right. It's like walking through a door. You leave your body, and then you're still aware, but you're not in the body. This happens so often, and it's shocking to people. I can't tell you how interesting it is to have an attorney sitting in my office discovering that there is no death. And it doesn't matter if the person believes in it or not, if the therapist believes in it or not, it still works, because it's such a consistent kind of finding. And so I treat people now, they don't have to have psychiatric symptoms. They can just be curious about death or growth. I just don't treat people that want to come into the office and have no agenda, just to show up.
Right.
But if they're interested...
For a fun afternoon.
Right.
I have nothing to do today. Take me back 3 lifetimes. Let's go on a trip. And then from this... And again, you don't do it for everybody. Now, not only, obviously, to those who are not hypnotizable, but what else is there about a person you say, no, we're not going to do this. We'll use your other therapies instead?
Well, I haven't done this with people that have been too ill psychiatrically, because the technique I use is hypnosis, and that's a kind of concentration. So I haven't been doing this yet with schizophrenia or certain phases of manic depressive illness when their mood is too high and they can't sit still or concentrate. I've done it with just about everybody else.
That's interesting. Schizophrenia or the multi-personality disorders, what would that... Have you had any findings relating to past lives? Is it a bunch of past lives? What?
It may be. There's a difference. Multiple personality is really different from schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is more what we call a psychotic state, where someone may be listening to voices from the CIA or delusional in that sense. Whereas multiple personalities, it's as if some other personality takes over the body and the mind. And that's a fascinating illness also, but that's not schizophrenia. And hypnosis and regression therapy works beautifully in multiple personalities. We do a lot of work in this area. Some findings about multiple personalities, for example, that are so fascinating is that one personality may suffer from asthma and not another one.
Right.
They're really
How is that possible?
That's what we're trying to figure out. There are physical changes. I suspect that it's the mind-body connection and the connection to the immune system, that our minds are so powerful in controlling the body, but we haven't learned really how to tap into that and how to control it.
But look at what you're saying. With multiple personality disorders, if one of the personalities has an illness that the other personalities do not, when we talk about mind over matter and that if you think sick, you'll be sick if you think well, and the Norman Cousins stories and all of those, this brings a whole new power to that.
Well, there it is, Sandy. That's the science. The science is the observation that one personality may have asthma or diabetes. It's even more than asthma. And another personality may not, in the same body, the same person. I mean, they're not there at the same time. That's the idea of multiple personalities. But how do you explain that? And
doesn't there only have to be... isn't there only one explanation for that?
I guess we don't know what it is, but it shows to me how powerful the mind can be. Now, there are other people that talk about spirit attachments and things like that, and I don't know much about that, but who knows? But to me, it's the mind, because in multiple personalities, how can one have asthma allergies? Allergies to bee stings. One has it, the other doesn't. And we have to be able to explain that because it's been observed many times now. We know this. This is a fact. So the mind really is powerful, but we haven't really learned to tap into it. If you and I practice meditating for many years, I'm sure yogis can do the same thing. But we don't do that. We're kind of impatient. We'd rather take pills or whatever. But we really should learn these other techniques because they're very powerful.
Dr. Brian Weiss, brilliant psychiatrist, fascinating author, many lives, many masters. His brand new book, Through Time into Healing, as we talk about past lives and their effect on our present, and now how they heal the body as well. We have a line available in Broward, 525-3193, and we'll get back to Brian and you right after this on 790 Memories WMRZ. Hello, we are here, and I love this computer. It's really the best. We'll get right to your calls in just a moment, but let me talk to you about, well, Brian certainly talks about health through his past life regressions and his psychiatric practice, but if you have other questions about health care, and who doesn't, you can get a number of those questions answered Wednesday, May 5th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Pompano Square Mall, when Humana will host a town meeting, and Ann Bishop and I will be moderating, and you'll get to discuss timely health care topics and learn about pending health reform measures and ask a lot of questions of a panel that will be on the stage. It is all free of charge, but seating is limited, so please call and reserve your seats tomorrow. And the number is in Broward is area code 305-321-7760. That's area code 305-321-7760. There'll be special gifts. There will be raffles and prizes. There'll be snacks provided by Siberian Express and Palmini's and Chick-fil-A and California Smoothie Frozen Yogurt, but you do need your coupon for those snacks, and that's why you have to call that number. Again, everything is free, but you have to reserve your place. And this is all happening Wednesday, May 5th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., when Humana will sponsor a town meeting at the Pompano Square Mall, hosted by Ann Bishop and me. And I hope that you will show up there, and because you'll get a lot of good information. And again, the Pompano Square Mall is at Copans Road and Federal Highway in the Mervyn's corridor. So come in right near Mervyn's and bring a friend and learn a lot, and we'll also have a very nice day. Wednesday, May 5th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Pompano Square Mall. Sandy Payton, delighted to be with brilliant psychiatrist, Dr. Brian Weiss, best-selling author of Many Lives, Many Masters, and his brand new book, well, brand new for me, I haven't gotten to this, you just gave it to me tonight, and I appreciate it, is Through Time into Healing, but I have read Many Lives, Many Masters, without exaggeration, 8 times.
Wow, thank you.
8 times. Given it as gifts. But his new book, Through Time into Healing, Discovering the Power of Regression Therapy to Erase Trauma and Transform Mind, Body, and Relationships. Obviously talking about past lives and past life regressions and what happened to him when he discovered where people were going when they were under hypnosis in his office for psychiatric care. And if you would like to join in with any experiences, questions, comments, the whole bit, again, we have a line available in Broward at 525-3193, 525-3193. And Grilla in Miami, hello. Did I say the name correctly? Grilla is listening to the radio. So one more time. Grilla, are you there?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Would you turn your radio down, please?
Yeah, 1 second, please.
1 second. Well, in the span of many lifetimes, what's a second?
I want to tell the doctor. Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
Doctor, your book is something else, I'm sorry about my English. My English is not so good.
You're perfect.
But I read the book every night. I lost my husband, and I was operated on cancer 5 years ago. And I'm not afraid to die anymore. I'm ready anytime. That's what your book did to me.
Oh, thank you. That's really the reason, Grilla, that I wrote the book, is because I had seen so many people who were afraid of death and dying, who were grieving. And I realized, and the more I realized, the more I knew I had to write it. It still took me 4 years, but that we didn't have to suffer so much if we understood more about it. The recent research, not just mine, but Raymond Moody's, as we were talking about, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I have so many stories about their work, too, now.
Doctor, I repeat every day, forgiveness, hope, love. The words that the Master say. I repeat every day to myself. Forgiveness, hope, and love.
Well, thank you, Grilla. I'm glad that it's bringing some peace.
This is wonderful, Doctor. I talk with everybody. A lot of people that read the book. A lot of people through me. Because I know what I went through. I know the way I feel free now. I feel free. I don't care what happened. I love the people. Like you say, I don't like to criticize. Nobody's perfect, right? We are all... Doctor, thank you very much. God bless you.
All right, thank you. See, in past lives, we didn't have call waiting.
Right.
So that was one of the nice things about the past lives.
Right.
But that opened the line in Dade, 653-8811, Broward 525-3193. Cheryl on a mobile phone. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Dr. Weiss, I have a few questions for you. I'm a registered nurse, and I was pregnant, and after an amnio discovered that my baby had trisomy 18, and was wondering if there's any link to either my mental status when I was pregnant or past lives, why, if there was any other reason this could happen feasibly.
I've had some interesting findings with pregnancies, too, because sometimes an agreement kind of is reached between the mother and the fetus. I'm not talking about you now, but other cases that if the body can't support what the baby's coming into this world to do, to learn, they may make a pact to have another one. That's a miscarriage. It's kind of an agreement between mother and baby early on. I'm not saying all miscarriages are this.
What would be in the experiences that you've had with talking with regressing women who have had miscarriages, then what was the purpose of becoming pregnant with the child you didn't bear?
Well, sometimes the body isn't strong enough. The spirit or the soul chooses the parents. This happens over and over again in the family. But if the body isn't developing the way that's best for all of them because of a genetic malformation or an accident, and in response to your question, it might be or it might not be. I don't have enough information yet. They may decide, no, not this one, but I'll come back again, because you can never hurt or harm a soul or a spirit. I had
So it's the same soul that comes back in another baby?
Yeah, 'cause sometimes, this sounds weird, this is really preliminary research, but I had, for example, a woman in Fort Myers whose small child, when they were passing a car place, a showroom in Naples, said, "Oh, I remember when we got our red car from here." But that was when the mother was pregnant with a previous child, and there was a miscarriage. And so there's so many things like that. On this show that I just did, the television show, the cameraman, while I was working in a prenatal in utero experience with one of the volunteer patients, the cameraman, I slid down the wall, I heard this noise. He goes out from behind the camera and has a prenatal in utero experience of his own.
The cameraman had a prenatal experience?
He went back in his
while watching you on the show?
Well, this was before the show. This was when I was working in the green room.
Right.
Privately.
Were you working with him?
No, he was the cameraman. He was on the other side of the camera.
Oh my God.
And he had an experience too. So for the question, it may be or it may not be, I don't know yet, but usually there are not accidents or coincidences. There are reasons.
Right. Well, I chose to induce labor. They said that the chance of my baby surviving to term were very small, and if so, it would only be for 4 months and would never leave the hospital. So I chose to induce labor. So I didn't, in essence, have a miscarriage.
Right, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. That's not necessarily a punishment or anything like that. If you can't kill a soul, whoever was reserving that body, that person's still around you. Don't worry.
Good. I do feel terrible.
Oh, don't. You shouldn't. It's okay. That's not an accident. You'll have a healthier one, probably.
I hope so. I would love to believe that.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Then has there been any explanation in your regressions as to why some babies are born deformed or less than perfect, that didn't bow out and say, I'll be back later better?
So many stories. I'm going to tell you one from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a quick one, because she's such a beautiful soul. She's the woman, the psychiatrist who did the death and dying pioneering work with Raymond Moody, described the near-death experience. Sure. And she was in Switzerland visiting her mother, who's a very strong Swiss woman. Elizabeth, by the way, is one of triplets who were all born prematurely in Switzerland around the 1920, in that area. And the doctors told her mother that they wouldn't survive. Elizabeth said her mother was so strong-willed, she said, they will if I have to stay with them constantly for however long it takes. And she did. She kept them alive with her body warmth and nursing them. One of them grew up to be Elizabeth, a gift to the world. And her mother said to her on this trip, Elizabeth, if I become a vegetable, put me out of my misery. And Elizabeth said, I can't do that. She's not Jack Kevorkian here. Her mother said, you're my only daughter who's a physician. You can. No one will know. Elizabeth said, I'll know. I can't do it. And I don't want to talk about it. And besides, you're not going to have us become a vegetable or whatever, because women like you, they live to be 90. Her mother climbed mountains and whatever in Switzerland, and then they die suddenly. Elizabeth comes back to Chicago, where she's a professor at the University of Chicago. Her mother has a stroke and becomes a vegetable. Elizabeth said she learned to listen to people after this happened. Her mother had a premonition and lasted 4 years that way, being nursed constantly. She couldn't take care of herself and died. And Elizabeth had told me she became very angry at God in this time, and she said, why, how can a God do this to this loving, giving woman? You could give her mother nothing. She wouldn't take a thing, but she would give you anything. Elizabeth had begun to meditate, and she told me she was meditating and a voice almost rocked her. She didn't hear voices, but this was inside her head, and it said, Elizabeth, why are you so angry at me? And Elizabeth answered back, because you made my mother suffer so for 4 years, this loving, giving woman who never asked for a thing. And the voice answered her, that was a gift to her. Love must be balanced. It cannot just be given. If nobody were to accept love, who could give it? Instead of her coming back for an entire lifetime or more as a crippled or retarded to learn this lesson, we let her learn this in only 4 years. And now she doesn't have to come back for that. And then Elizabeth understood. So that's
people, what you've come to believe then are the sufferings that people go through are lessons they needed to learn from things that were happened in the past.
It may be, yes. And this way her mother was balanced in only 4 years, and she learned that lesson. That's why Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is so angry at Jack Kevorkian, because she believes strongly that people are learning something right up to the end.
Puts a whole new slant on that, doesn't it? Elaine, you're giving me so much to think about, because I did support Kevorkian until this moment. Elaine on a mobile phone, hello.
Hello, Sandy. Hello, Brian.
Hi.
I love you both. I'm headed up to do a radio show myself up in the Palm Beaches right this minute. Brian, we're working on the exact same level. I'm in the process of writing a lot about the laws of the universe. It just so happens that reincarnation is a law. So there's no way around it. Whether people like it or not, whether they know it or not, it's here. And it has been since everything was founded. And what you were just speaking of about Kevorkian, he positively is shorting out the life force, and that is not his job. He's throwing out of balance the whole principle of love.
But wait a minute, let's take this one step further.
Okay.
It's the sick person's decision, who's supposedly, and I believe that is so, asking and or begging Dr. Kevorkian to end his or her life. There's a road we all can take, the easy road or the hard road. So if they choose to end their life now, and there's still a lesson to be learned, if all that Brian and you are saying, and it is correct, then next life they'll pay for it.
Yes, indeed, but wouldn't it be wonderful if they had more knowledge to be equipped to go through it as best possible right here and now?
Sure, that's why we're writing these things. Absolutely. And talking on these wonderful radio shows and doing this kind of teaching because there may be more to it. The Kevorkian matter is not so simple. It's not black and white. There may be another way of looking at it. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who's such a wonderful, loving soul, she doesn't get angry at many things, but she's angry at Kevorkian.
But it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes, because he's not telling them the other side of the story. I'm sure that's what's got her up a tree here. You know, there's just not enough education.
And sometimes there's a difference between the conscious mind, what you're asking, and the subconscious or the unconscious or the higher self, which may not want to do this.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
That opens a line in Broward, 525-3193, 525-3193. Well, then you can extend that, be it with Kevorkian or not. Anyone who has committed suicide has a lot of dues to pay when he or she comes back.
Right. Usually what I found, and I'm just talking about my work now, is that they come back more quickly. They don't go to hell or something like that. I can't say that anymore. I had one person who went to hell out of all these hundreds. It was an attorney.
Everybody's laughing.
Right. That's why.
That's all you had to say.
That's it. But it wasn't because of that. This is absolutely true. An attorney, he dies in one of these former lives, not now. He's in my office, and he goes to this place with fires and devils. The classical concept. He's also Catholic and was expecting that, which is probably more important than his being an attorney. But that's out there, and who am I to say? So nobody pays any attention to him. One of the things that I found, and I'm sure others, is that oftentimes you're met when you die or have a near-death experience and go to the light by either a religious or spiritual figure or a relative, maybe a grandparent, someone to help ease the transition, someone that's familiar or loving to you. In this man's case, as a Catholic, he saw a spiritual figure that he identified as Jesus coming to him after nobody had paid any attention to him in this place. No devil, nobody in this fire and brimstone kind of place. Jesus comes up to him and says, "Don't you realize that this is all illusion? Only love is real." And then it all just drops away like in the movies, and the light is there. So it was because of his expectation, but it wasn't
Again,
real.
the mind. The power of the mind.
Very powerful. So I don't know about Kevorkian. I know about Elizabeth's perspective, and I know about mine, but I think we're learning all the time. Even people in comas can be learning.
Well, in a similar sense, Dr. Bernie Siegel, the surgeon, I'm sure you've read all of his books or some of them.
I did surgery with Bernie. Okay. I was a medical student at Yale before he was Bernie Siegel. He had hair.
That was before he was Bernie. In one of his latest books, he talked about, be very careful, talking to surgeons, be very careful of what you say in an operating room, because while a patient is under anesthesia, he or she is hearing every word you're saying. And he had proven over a period of time, to himself anyway, that when negative things were said in the operating room, such as, "Oh, I don't think he's going to make it," that either the patient died or never became well. But when they say, "Oh, this guy looks great, he's doing fine," that patient recovered very quickly.
Now I have to tell you a true Bernie Siegel story, because he didn't always say that. When I was a medical student and I scrubbed with him, he was known for telling obscene jokes. That was his, and this is the truth, that we can say it.
Sure.
Leda and the Swan, an obscene poem that he and his partner Dick Seltzer wrote. So Bernie, as medical students, and I knew I wasn't going into surgery, but I would choose to scrub with them because they were hilarious. And they were good surgeons too, and I learned a lot. He was giving a workshop down here, and I went to him years later. This was only a couple of years ago at the intermission, and I said, Bernie, I reintroduced myself, but we only had a class of 80 students, so he knew me well. And he said, "It's good to see you," and this and that. "How are you doing?" And I said, "Bernie, you just said this, which you just mentioned, Sandy, about surgeons have to be careful of what they say." And I said, "I remember when you were telling obscene jokes." And then he looks down for a minute. Then he looks up. He's very smart, very quick. And he says, "Brian, isn't it better to tell jokes than to say, this person's going to be a vegetable, or this one will never make it? What's the worst thing a patient can say? Dr. Siegel, why aren't you paying more attention to my surgery?"
Right.
So in my first attempt to induce guilt in Bernie Siegel, it didn't work. He outfoxed me, but I'll get him another time. But that's true. I've had so many patients. Let me tell you something beyond that. It's not just true in the operating room. I had a case in Mount Sinai where a patient floated out of her body during surgery. She was under general anesthesia, and she described floating into the waiting room where her family was waiting, and she overheard her brother-in-law making some obnoxious comments about his expectations for her recovery, like, I hope the old bag doesn't come out of this one. There was no love lost there, you brothers-in-law. And she got angry. She tried to hit him, but her arm just went through him, like in the movie Ghosts. When she woke up in the recovery room, she was really upset. And she confronted him later on, and it was word for word. It was true. It was accurate. She knew where people were standing, what they were wearing. So not only do you have to be careful in the operating room itself, but you might have to be careful elsewhere in the hospital as well, what you're saying. People get out of their bodies, or however it works. They can be aware of what's going on at a distance.
That is absolutely...
And so Bernie and I, when we swap stories, yes.
Be careful what you say anywhere, anytime.
Say only nice things, right?
That's right. Well.
Not here, not on the radio. Then you're allowed to do this, right?
And we, just as you said that, I don't know that was so weird as you were talking about that, but one of my headphones went out just as you were in the middle of that conversation. That is so strange. Everything was working fine until you started doing that. One of my headphones went like, oh well. Very strange thing. We'll be right back on Twilight Zone. But first, let me talk to you about something that's also very real, and that is the service and the wonderful people you will find at Bras Plus. Every woman in the world should shop there, and you will feel like you're in a past life, truly, because the service like this you can't find anywhere these days, and you know it, where you are fitted by figure consultants, and I mean real figure consultants who have been in the business for decades and who know what they're doing. In fact, you can't buy most items off a rack or a shelf. You have to be fitted so that the garment fits you the way it should, the way they know it should, and does for you what it should do for you, and you realize you've been wearing the wrong thing all your life. They also have a lot of specialty sizes and specialty items that you cannot find anywhere else. If you've had a mastectomy, please don't even consider another place. They have all the prostheses, they have everything you need, but they also have the care and the expertise and the knowledge, and they do accept Medicare assignments for mastectomy patients up to Medicare's prevailing rates. They have Edith Lance's sizes for the fuller woman up to size 52, and along with all of those things, they have complete swimsuit lines. In fact, the 93 arrivals of Airway Swimwear is there. Sports apparel, lingerie, hosiery, all waiting for you, and only at Bras Plus. 4812 North University Drive, and their phone number is 742-7722. Bras Plus.
109 Eyes.
Payton with Dr. Brian Weiss, renowned psychiatrist and best-selling author of Many Lives, Many Masters. His brand new book, Through Time into Healing. And we're talking about past life regressions that he has found not only release people from their past, but also help cure people of many illnesses, physical as well as mental and emotional, in the present, because of finding out what from their past life is causing the problems. It's so complex and yet not.
Parts of it seem simple. For example, I was working with Gloria Loring. We were talking about her before because she's from Miami.
We went to high school together.
Young people. And she's
I
now...
told you were a brilliant psychiatrist.
Right. She's in Los Angeles now, so I was out doing the show, and I worked with Gloria, and she went back and remembered being hit over the neck and head with one of those old ball and chain type weapons by a horseman. The year was 1029 AD, and she was killed that way. I think it was a crusade or something like that. And again, that was a few days before the live taping of the show. By the taping of the show, her chronic neck pain and head pain was much better. She felt lighter, and her head was more flexible. And she had been to chiropractors and...
You're listening to Sanday Payton.
What are we doing here? Dana, why is that music playing in the middle of this? Okay, go ahead.
And she had been to chiropractors and others with no relief from this, but for some reason this memory helped her. It released her. So I'm not sure how it works, but it really seems to work. You don't have to be Gloria Loring, of course. In those cases, it's simple. It may happen very quickly. But in relationships, it may be more complicated. It may take several sessions, longer. It's not always so quick. I've had couples who have been repeating lifetime patterns, and they're repeating it again now. For example, one couple was a man who was from a Latin family and a woman who was Southern Baptist, totally different backgrounds. They met at a party, very instant chemistry. Sometimes you see that from past lives, the attraction, or the opposite, the antipathy or fear or anger, and you don't know where that's coming from, but it may be from another lifetime. Anyway, instant chemistry. They start going together. Everything is great, such passion. But he starts to become very jealous. And he's a businessman, and she's a banker, a professional, usually very cool. She'll kiss a male on the cheek goodnight after a dinner party. He flies into a rage, accuses her of all kinds of behaviors that she isn't doing. And she, the conservative banker, she begins to flirt, to really egg him on. And he came in one day and said, I feel like breaking her neck. We were working on a different issue, and I said, you know, I think we better look at this in a different way. He knew the research I was doing. So he goes under, I hypnotize him. We find 4 lifetimes in which he had already killed her for infidelity. The most powerful was as a Muslim couple in the 10th century. He deserted her in the desert at that time. That was tantamount to killing her. And I told him, well, don't tell her anything, but I want to bring her in and see if she can come up with any of these. I don't know if he did or didn't. I told him not to, but it's not, that part isn't good science. This was clinical. She comes in and remembers 2 of the lifetimes. So it's very interesting because they were able to...
So they matched up 2 of the lifetimes
2 of
together.
the 4, right. The Muslim one came up with her, too. So that tells me that oftentimes these recurring patterns may be emerging once again in this life. Now, they were able, recognizing that, to put aside these behaviors and not to kill each other or whatever in this lifetime, and they got married.
But the emotions were still there.
The emotions were there, but they were able to dissipate them, to really lessen them as the awareness of where it was coming from became conscious. So that's how this works. It's bringing into consciousness what may be deeply hidden, just like going back to childhood and remembering a trauma from age 3 or 5 can do the same thing.
But that is true, that there are so many people, even just a friend, doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, that you have instant chemistry with, you meet in school or whatever, that you have found that they've known and had a good relationship in the past, or you meet somebody, and we've all experienced that, where all you do is say hello and say, oh, please, I can't stand this person.
Exactly. And that may be from a past. One of my wife's, Carol's best friends here, Judy, there was that kind of instant liking and attraction. And these 2, it's amazing. Judy's an attorney and Carol's a social worker. They always dress alike. They never compare notes. And it can be totally different. But when we're going out or doing something, it's like twins. And they don't check it. You know, now they know if they feel like wearing a dark blue blazer, don't wear that because the other one's going to wear it. So they'll both change out of the dark blue blazer into something else and still be dressed.
Of course.
It's uncanny.
Well, did your wife and her friend ever do the regression?
Carol has, but Judy hasn't yet.
Did she see Judy in the past lives?
Didn't find her yet.
Were you together with your wife in a past life?
I've done it 3 times, and I haven't found Carol, although I'm sure we were, because it was like this instant familiarity. When I was 17 and she was 16, we were babies, and we knew right then. And this was up in the Catskill Mountains. I was a busboy and she was a guest, and we were just children. But there was this instant familiarity, and we've been together for 30 years now, almost 30 years.
You just said that with a stunned look.
Yeah, because it was 1963, so
Don't forget the anniversary.
Right.
Broward 525-3193. Bob in Miami, good evening.
Good evening. Say, in the course of these different regressions, have you learned anything about why these people incarnate again and again?
What I learned is that usually it's for lessons. We come here to learn, and then we can graduate and go on. We don't have to come back. Now, where do we graduate to? Well, that's the concepts of heaven. In all the mystical traditions of every religion, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, there are different levels of heavens. In Kabbalah, there are 7 heavens, but this is all very similar. So much similarity in all the great religions. And that seems to be the place we graduate to when we finish here. That There are different levels. When we graduate, we don't have to come back.
But how do you know that? If you're doing regressions, then you're looking at past lives. You obviously, I'm saying obviously, I assume obviously haven't met anyone that's already been gone from here. They graduated. How do you know where we go?
Well, this is a bit odd, but sometimes when people pass out of a body in a past life, and they go into this kind of in-between state, where they are in between, they become aware of things, knowledge, wisdom, whatever else. And I've heard this from so many people, what it's like there. The beautiful light, bright, that doesn't hurt the eyes, the kind of love, often meeting the spiritual figure or a relative. And this happens so commonly, and they describe. So I've asked, because you can talk with them in this state.
What do you have to do to graduate?
Well, these are the traits that we learn here. We have to learn to love. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the main lesson here, to let go of negative traits like fear, anger, violence, this kind of thing, anxiety, sadness, those come later, and to learn more about love and joy and forgiveness.
Do you have any contact with people who have graduated?
Well, we just asked that.
Yeah, that's a good question, because what Bob's asking, I think, is what about the people who, not just in between lives, but when they graduate and they don't have to come back? I think I have. I think that was with the first person, Catherine, that I...
Why would they come back if they've graduated?
Well, they come back voluntarily. They come back... Let me tell you...
I think you'd be smart enough. You had enough wisdom to say, I'm not going back there.
Have you had any experience with an ascended master who have graduated?
Well, again, in my first patient, Catherine, and rarely since then, there were these people that she met when she went in between lifetimes. She called them masters. That's where the many lives, many masters comes from.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that transmitted this kind of information that I left in many lives, many masters intact. I didn't edit it. I didn't let Simon & Schuster touch that stuff. That came from tapes of our sessions. And so that's in there kind of exactly as it came through her in the office when she was in this deep state in between lifetimes. So that's been the contact. That's where the very first caller today, Grizel, was talking about love and peace and harmony. That was coming from those tapes of these master spirits that Catherine called them. But she called them people that weren't in their bodies anymore, didn't need bodies. They were around her.
Yeah.
And these were the masters that she described.
That's right.
All right, Bob, thank you. That opens the line in Dade, 653-8811, Broward 525-3193, 525-3193. From the wisdom that they gain and that you have gained from listening to these people, how do you know when you've finished? How do you know how many lifetimes, when you've reached your last life? Okay, I've now reached perfection, so to speak.
Yeah, generally you know. You don't have to worry about knowing. There comes a wisdom and a peacefulness and a just knowing. And I think a lot of us are getting closer to that. What I said about coming back voluntarily, this is in religions too, because in the Jewish religion, and this was there when Christianity arose from the Jewish religion 2,000 years ago, there are different words for reincarnation. So this has been an ancient belief that still goes on. As a matter of fact, in Judaism, it didn't go underground until about 1825 A.D. And in the Hasidic, the ultra-Orthodox people, it is still there. I get referrals from them for this kind of past life work because they believe in it. So the word Gilgul means reincarnation of everyday folk. I think that means us. But the word Ibor means reincarnation of perfected souls that come back voluntarily to help mankind, to teach. They don't get stuck here. They go on. Now, in Hinduism and Buddhism, this is called bodhisattva, people that come back voluntarily. So amazing to me how similar the religions are.
And if they don't come back to teach, where do they go?
Well, then there are other dimensions, other worlds. They may work from the other side. You don't have to call these masters or spirits. You may use the word angels. Whatever's comfortable. The word doesn't matter. Or there may be other worlds that are more advanced than this one that we go on to when we graduate.
And what they're basically saying is first we have to get rid of all of this earthly garbage we carry around with our
stuff, our emotions, our hatreds and angers and violence and all this stuff that you can't take with you and that's useless anyway.
Well, I'd say looking at the states that society is in today, we're not even near first grade, let alone graduating.
I usually call it junior high school, but it may be not.
Florence in Plantation, hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
I spent one day at a seminar with Brian Weiss, and it was very interesting. He was there, and Dr. Moody was there, and John Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very interesting because I'm not a believer.
Then why would you go to an entire day's seminar? I mean, for an hour I could see it.
No, I got to tell you, it included lunch.
That's why you went.
He signed my book, and I'm looking, and I've got to tell you, but I'm not. But my cousin is. She's into crystals and all of that. And there were people lying on the floor, and I was looking at this. But I've got to tell you, what freaked me out is they lowered the lights, and you had to stare at somebody until you saw an aura.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an aura.
You did?
Yeah, on my cousin. And her face changed and everything, and it was very scary.
Wasn't that interesting, though?
Yeah, well,
you were starting to have a psychic experience.
But an aura is not supposed to be frightening.
Well, because if you're not a believer, it's right.
That's what I love about believing or not believing. See, you had the courage to go and to try it, right?
Yeah,
Didn't keep you away.
But the reason I called is because, Sandy will laugh, because I'm always telling stories about this daughter. This daughter now lives in New England, and she went to apply for a job and was really not. There were other people who applied for this job that were more qualified than she, but there was a connection between her and the man who would be her boss, and he taught her. He was willing to take a chance on her, and they have a very special relationship. And a psychic told her that there was a connection between them in a past life.
I think you're getting closer to believing.
Well, but...
you must have liked the lunch, right? It was a good lunch.
In fact, it was pretty bad.
This is not a high-powered money group, right? A little box lunch or something, right?
I mean, I think, for $75, for what that...
A bologna sandwich was not it.
Yeah, it was some kind of terrible...
But you're supposed to be lifted. You're supposed to be spiritual. Don't look at the food.
But now my mission is to try to learn meditation because I need to relax. And I said, I've got so much garbage going around in my head that how do I learn how to relax? And I figure if you know how to meditate and relax, that you can be receptive to a lot of other things. Am I right?
You're going to also have experiences as you learn to meditate because you're already seeing auras and seeing faces change, which might be looking at someone's past lives. That's a little exercise that we do just to have some fun and to play with psychic abilities. And it's amazing. Children sometimes, they'll come 15, 14 years old, 16.
Would be easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and they start seeing auras and things like that. So what you're describing is just the beginning. All I would say to you is to not believe or not believe. Just observe. Keep an open mind. And that way you'll be wide open and you'll have your own experiences and you make up your own mind. That's the best way.
Okay, well, it's...
So wait a minute. So after that whole day...
Yes.
And seeing the aura...
Yes.
You left saying, I still don't believe.
I've left saying I'm confused.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah,
okay.
That's honest.
You've come a long way, Florence. A long way.
And the one book I won't read is Shirley MacLaine.
Why?
Because I'm very... I'm reserved.
Oh, I've read all her books. They're fascinating.
Have you read them?
Yes.
I've read the first one, Out on a Limb, which I liked. Shirley MacLaine did an important job in bringing this to the public. That was 1981 that Out on a Limb came out.
The movie was terrible, but the book was fascinating.
Yeah, and focused so much on her affair with the British politician, the movie. But the book was very interesting.
I saw Dr. Moody being interviewed on Joan Rivers' show.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about having children in near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Joan Rivers was supposed to go where he was located. I forgot where it was, Virginia?
Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right, thank you. But she was supposed to experience that, and I never saw the follow-up show. I don't know whatever happened. Are you in contact with him at all?
Yes, frequently. And on the show, she did have an out-of-body experience and visited her daughter.
She did?
Yeah, Joan Rivers did, in California. And then I went up about 6 weeks later.
Was this done before and then they showed the tape?
Yes. She actually went to Anniston, Alabama, where Raymond is located, and went through his little course that he did.
And she left and went to visit her daughter.
She saw her daughter taking a shower. This is what she described on the show. And her daughter became aware of something, and they compared notes, but her daughter was in the shower at that time and was...
There's no privacy when you travel.
No, see, that's the problem. But if it's your own mother, it's maybe a little better. And then 6 weeks later, I went to the Joan Rivers show and regressed her.
You regressed Joan?
I regressed Joan Rivers. That was back in November, and Joan went back...
Wait a minute. I want you to tell the story, but I do have to take a break. Florence, thank you very much.
Okay.
And we'll be right back for Joan Rivers Regression on 790 Memories, WMRZ.
The opinions expressed on this paid program are those of the host, guest, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of WMRZ. Please direct all program inquiries to the host of this show. You're listening to the Sandy Payton Show on 790 Memories, WMRZ, South Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. To be a part of tonight's show, in Dade, call 653-8811, and in Broward, 525-3193.
And welcome back. Sandy Payton, delighted to be with renowned psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss and best-selling author and lecturer. His first best-selling book, which, by the way, if I remember correctly, was on the best-selling list in Florida it broke records for the longest time of any book for number one, wasn't it?
It was on about 122 weeks on the bestseller list.
For the state of Florida?
Yes.
And then nationwide, it was on the best-selling list
not
forever, too, but not as long as that.
Not nationwide, really. In some regional areas, but... It was never promoted by the publisher, which is okay. It's mostly word of mouth.
Well, Oprah didn't hurt you all those times.
Right.
But the first book that never left the best-selling list was Many Lives, Many Masters, which you can still get in paperback.
Yes.
And his new book in hardcover now is called Through Time into Healing, in which he takes more cases of past life regressions and talks about how it also has healed people emotionally, physically, mentally, when they've been able to release things from their past that were interfering with their present, except that subconscious. Now, you regressed Joan Rivers.
Right. I've come a long way. This is not my favorite thing in the world to do, to regress TV stars, soap opera actresses. Yeah, but television is a strange thing. You know, they have their ways. So I won't go and do it live, but I will go up a few days early and work with them privately and show them what it's like. And
People are going to think you're Kreskin.
Right. I met him, too. I followed him once. That was very strange. And I went up to, by the way, I was just thinking that your radio show here in Miami was the very first one that I did, radio, television, anything.
It was.
And many
I was very honored.
No,
yes, I was.
Me too, to be here. And so I remember that fondly. Yes, that was great. And so to Joan Rivers. And so I go up to New York. They want, since she had this out-of-body type of experience, could she have a past life experience too? So they invited me up, and I work with her privately in a hotel suite, although her camera crew was there and they were recording this. And I have to tell you that it was an odd situation because I requested about an hour and a half to work with Joan, as I would with anybody. I don't like to rush in, and I like to talk to them and reassure them. And the time comes, I'm in the hotel suite, the producer's there, the camera crew, no Joan. So I'm looking at my watch and I'm saying, I really do need the hour and a half. Could we go over at the tail end of it in case she's late? No, she has a mammogram, and she has to go right after here on time for that appointment. So why is she late? Because she's working with Howard Stern, doing a television show, and he's saying things that you cannot say over the air. And so they're cutting it and stopping it, and he's messing her up. And I thought, great, here I am, waiting for Joan Rivers. She's coming from Howard Stern, who's an interesting fellow in his own right. And then she has a mammogram afterwards. She should be nice and relaxed by the time she gets here. Finally, she shows up. We still have about an hour. And actually, it exhausted her, so it helped. And she goes under quickly. She goes under, I didn't expect this. And right away, she's in the 19th century in England as a aristocratic type of woman who recognizes her daughter in that life in England, 150 some years ago, as her mother in this life, whom she's still grieving. She'd lost her husband, lost her mother. And we didn't expect her mother to come up, but her mother from this life was her daughter in that life. And then, much to her chagrin, she had a second lifetime in the 1700s as a male farmer, very unglamorous. Mm-hmm. And then she came out of it. And that really... You come out when you're ready to come out? Or do you bring them out? I brought her out because she was getting tired, and I knew... You bring people out when I sense that they're tired or they're ready to come out or the time is running out. I knew she had this mammogram appointment. So what did she say afterwards? What did she gain from it? She gained, it was kind of wow, the intensity of the experience. But also, I think the main thing that she gained was the realization that her mother from this life, who had died, and she was mourning, was alive in the 1800s, because this was very vivid to Joan Rivers, as her daughter. So what does that mean? What does that tell you about relationships and about death? And she was just beginning to integrate this, but then had to run out. And I taped the live show the next day, and she was still integrating this, and I haven't heard from her since. It's November, but I'm sure it helped her understand about grief. Is there any way anybody could fake this? Sure. Yeah. Pretend they're going under? Yeah, that's why I'm very careful. I like to see people that are serious about it, that really want to learn something. Can you tell if somebody's really under? Usually. Oh, yes, there are ways to tell this. And I can tell what's imagination and what's fantasy and what might be real and what might be a mixture of all of those things. Nobody really fakes it, because to go through all that trouble and come in. But I didn't trust certain, like television shows. Primetime Live wanted to send a producer down to be hypnotized and to go through this. And I don't trust them. The producer might be willing and they might be open about it, but they might also just be doing one of their things or have hidden cameras stuck in their shoe or whatever they do on Primetime Live. And I just didn't trust that was honest. And I go a lot with my instincts and feelings. Go with your gut. Yeah. I live by that motto. Yeah. Because that's supposed to be your higher self anyway. Right. Beverly and Boca, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I've had a couple of psychic flashes, so I am a believer. But I did have questions.
Sure.
I also read your book, which did help me right after I lost my husband. A cousin had given it to me.
Good.
And it did help me. But something did happen which I can't seem to assimilate, and I was wondering if you might, help me with it. I have a 3-year-old niece, great niece, who also seemed to show some psychic ability as a child, and she underwent a little surgery, and she went into cardiac arrest. And she was in cardiac arrest for 58 minutes when they pulled her back. So, of course, she's irreparably brain damaged. But I was wondering if there could be any rhyme or reason or explanation in view of what you were saying about having to learn or coming back or anything.
You mean why someone at age 3 would be brain damaged and live that way?
Yeah, we go into cardiac arrest for 58 minutes and come back rather than just leave,
Yeah, what state is she in now? No, not what condition, really?
She's irreparably brain damaged. She's lost everything, practically, except, she can hear and she can't do too much.
Let me tell you one thing that I've seen also from children with Down syndrome and also children who die very young. And I had my first child, a son, died at 3 weeks of age. One thing that I found is that sometimes those are really loving beings. They come in for the sake of the parents or other people to teach about love. And it's like a gift. Like they volunteer for that. and then they go back because they know about death. I think I've heard that a lot from patients, that it may not be for the sake of the child, it may be for the sake of the family or the other people that the child chooses to do this. It's really maybe an act of love, to teach the family how to love, how to care. Because some of these children are so lovable. I'm not saying that the 3-year-old with brain damage, but the Down syndrome, the Mongolism, they really can teach about love. And sometimes that's done as a gift, an act of love for the other people.
Would it be an act of love when she requires so much care? I mean, apparently she was supposed to have died.
Could also be part love, part lesson.
Right, it can be both. But yes, it's teaching. People are taking care of her. Who's taking care of her?
Her parents.
Right. See, they're with her all the time. They're learning about so much. They may not wish this. They may not, I know it's such a difficult thing, but looking back at it, you can see what you learn from these situations, and it's tremendous.
The learning experience, as painful as that sounds.
Yeah, I have a hard time.
I know, it is hard,
but the mother had a hard life. She lost her parents. The parents were always loving, very loving people.
Well, let me ask you, Brian, for people who might find this difficult, possibly, certainly not in all cases, if you were to do a past life regression with a woman, you might find out that she had given people a lot of pain and a lot of grief in prior lives, and therefore this is as awful as that sounds, but I've heard stories like a payback life.
Sure, I'm not saying that this is the case, because one shouldn't feel guilty about this.
Right.
I mean, what if she were a camp guard in the Holocaust and was killing children? Or you don't have to go to the Holocaust. You can go to Yugoslavia and see what they're doing now. What happens when those people come back and have to learn? And what better way than to take care of someone who's damaged now, and to love them and to care for them and nurture them, to learn about the preciousness of life and health. I'm not saying in this case this is, because you really shouldn't feel guilty, but it's really balanced. There are no accidents that way. And so there really is a reason for it. We may not know it at the time, but it becomes apparent later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rodney and Perrine, good evening.
How are you, Sandy?
Hi.
Dr. Brian Weiss, I heard a lady tell you on the phone that you wrote a book, among other things, making people not afraid of dying. Right.
Yes.
Well, my problem is that since 1960, because of an insulin treatment that I went through in my original country, I started to feel sore and weak, and I am not afraid of dying. I wish only to live the same amount of years, which are 33, feeling strong and not sore. Don't you think that's fair?
Sure. There are other ways to not be afraid of dying, and people who have near-death experiences, I don't recommend trying this, like in flatliners, but they lose their fear of dying too because they experience it. So you don't have to go through regression. But in my way of looking at things, to have a little hypnosis and regression is much easier than having the near-death experience. It's safer.
That opens the line in Dade, 653-8811. One in Broward, 525-3193. Alice in South Miami, hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, I just have sort of a strange question to ask. It's something I wonder about. I was in an armed robbery once, and he was a big man. And he stood there with a big gun, and he wanted to kill me. But somehow I knew he wasn't going to. But when I looked at his eyes and his face, the thought went through my mind, that man has no soul. Now, is that possible? I mean, he left me alive. Everything was all right. But I got that feeling and that thought.
Yeah.
I never forgot it.
I don't think literally he has no soul. I've never found that. I don't think the body could exist without that or could live. But in symbolic ways, I think I know what you're saying, that his soul is so primitive that he's...
Is that what it is? You've got the word. That is the feeling I got.
Right. Primitive.
Emptiness. Primitive emptiness.
Right. There is a soul, but it's primitive. It has a lot of work to do. And you'll run across these primitive souls now and then, and they still have to go through the same journey we all do. We progress, we learn. We were primitive once, too. It's part of the evolution of the soul.
Well, yeah, one other strange thing was, he said to me, I'm going to blow your brains out. And then he said to me, have you got any money in your bra? And he put his big hand out to rip my blouse off, and he stopped, and he didn't do it. You know, the whole thing was strange.
Very strange, but there was something else going on there, something psychic, because you were aware that he wasn't going to hurt you. He wasn't going to shoot you.
I wasn't one bit scared. That
Right.
was another strange thing.
Right.
Well, I've never forgotten him. It might be strange, but when I say a prayer sometimes, when I decide to be good, I think about him.
That's nice. And in my way of thinking, and what we're finding, he owes you.
Well, he was a big black man, and he hated me because I was white, and that was more or less the gist of it. But he still seemed to have a sense of respect for me. I can't explain it.
Yeah, there's something more. He may come back as a little Chinese woman. I don't know. we always change, but you'll recognize it a different way, and he's going to make it up to you.
Well, you know, despite everything, I still kind of like him. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
Good. Good for you.
Okay.
Thank you. She's progressing very rapidly.
Right.
You're going to graduate very soon.
Right.
I hope so.
Thank you. That opens the line in Dade, 653-8811, one in Broward, 525-3193. And we'll return to Brian Weiss and your calls in just a moment. But something that is very present is a present for Mother's Day. Not past, but we're talking about the present Mother's Day and a present for Mom. And what better place to get that than the New York Diamond and Jewelry Exchange right in the Pembroke Lakes Mall on Hollywood Boulevard. An amazing place with 40 different jewelers in one store, all under one roof in one mall. So you save a lot of wear and tear and a lot of money because everything is at wholesale prices. You'll look at over $20 million worth of jewelry all under one roof, and you will pay wholesale prices. While you're there, by the way, if you'd like to go to a Marlins game, put your name into the entry box. You'll see the box right at the front of the store. And every other week, they draw a name, and that person wins tickets, 4 tickets, in fact, to an upcoming Marlins game, and the winner will be notified by mail or by phone. But walk around, look at the jewelry, decide what you want, and you will be so delighted that you were there. And, of course, they do redesigning throughout the Jewelry Exchange. They do repairs. It is an amazing place because this is the first one of its kind inside a major regional mall. And among the 40 different jewelers in the New York Diamond and Jewelry Exchange, you'll find, for example, Diamonds and Gold by Michael. They're located right in the front of the exchange, and they offer the latest styles in 14 and 18 karat gold, diamond, and precious stone jewelry. And it's all exceptionally priced, even when compared to so-called factory outlets. All diamonds at Diamonds and Gold by Michael come with a money-back guarantee, and they also specialize in personal custom designs, remounts, appraisals, and repairs. So stop by and say hello to Diamonds and Gold by Michael. You'll also find Giuliani's Fine Jewelry, and they specialize in diamonds, precious and semi-precious gems of all shapes and sizes, and they have a large selection of 14 karat, 18 karat, and 22 karat gold jewelry, tennis bracelets to fulfill all your needs, and of course they'll redesign your old jewelry to your satisfaction, and they'll buy your old jewelry. You'll also find Martin's at the New York Diamond and Jewelry Exchange, where you'll have fine jewelry and estate pieces to select from. The largest selection of beautiful ladies and men's bracelets, chains, rings. Their diamonds and wedding bands can be seen really so specially. They're just gorgeous. They have many exceptional estate pieces. And you will also find their 3-month layaway plan very convenient. They only ask for 10% down and low prices all year long. That's Martin's, also in the New York Diamond and Jewelry Exchange. Those are just a few of the places and people you will meet in the New York Diamond and Jewelry Exchange. Head over there for Mother's Day, for any day, right near Sears in the Pembroke Lakes Mall. Hi, I'm Sanday Payton. Lots of questions out there about health care, but now you'll be able to get some answers at Humana's Town Meeting, Wednesday, May 5th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Pompano Square Mall. Ann Bishop and I will be hosting it, and you'll get to discuss timely health care topics and learn about pending health reform measures. And it's all there for free for you. Seating is limited, so reserve quickly by calling area code 305-321-7760. That's 305-321-7760. There'll be snacks, there'll be special gifts, there'll be raffles and prizes. Bring a friend and get lots of good information and ask lots of good questions. Sponsored by Humana's Town Meeting at the Pompano Square Mall. That's Copans Road and Federal Highway in the Mervyn's Corridor. Ann Bishop and I will be fielding your questions Wednesday, May 5th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Come on out, say hello, get a lot of good information Wednesday, May 5th at Humana's Town Meeting.
If You would like to speak with Sandy on the air. Call the WMRZ studios now at 653-8811 in Dade or in Broward, 525-3193. Now, back to Sandy Payton.
One line available. It is in Broward at 525-3193. We are delighted to be with psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss, best-selling author and lecturer, Many Lives, Many Masters, on the best-selling list in the state of Florida for 103? 23, excuse me. 123 weeks. The all-time #1 book in the state of Florida. I thought it was never going to come off, and I was frankly very disappointed. I kept looking every week because it was like a kick to see if it was still on there. His new book is called Through Time into Healing, Discovering the Power of Regression Therapy to Erase Trauma and Transform Mind, Body, and Relationships. Ruth in Fort Lauderdale, good evening.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi.
Hi, I'd love to talk to the doctor.
I'm right here, Ruth.
Okay, we just bought your book about 3 days ago.
The new one or the first one?
Oh, the new one, Through Time into Healing.
Okay.
We stopped at the bookstop, and we picked it up there. And there's only one problem with it. I have to share it with my husband. We argue over who's going to read it.
Just reading it at the same time. Read it together. It promotes harmony.
Well, we can't do that.
You don't read the same speed.
Pardon me?
You don't read at the same speed?
No, he's busy doing his thing, and I grab it when
I'm
he's
just
not
kidding.
doing it and so forth. Anyway, there are several questions I'd like to ask you. First of all, are you still at the hospital in Miami?
Well, I still teach there, but my office is down in the Dadeland area now.
In Dadeland?
I'm doing this research more now. I'm not really interested that much in administrative psychiatry or running the department. I did that for 11 years and then pretty much got to where I could go with that. But now I'm working with patients doing this regression mostly full time.
Now, if someone were to if we wanted to contact you for any sessions, where would we contact you?
In that office, in the Dadeland area. It's in the information, easy to find.
Okay, we didn't get to that part of the book yet.
Right.
Anyway, also, do you have seminars?
I do from time to time, and the same office number you can call to get them on a mailing list or just to find out if I'm doing a seminar or workshop in the area.
Right. Now, we live all the way up in Broward, and I was wondering, are there any doctors in this area that do what you do, or any that you would recommend?
There's a Dr. Diana Denholm who's in West Palm Beach.
Then it would be just as easy for me to come down where you are.
Just as easy.
Well, you can work this out when you call his office.
The logistics.
Okay,
right.
let me go on from that point then, okay?
Or you can space travel. You can be there in next 2 seconds.
I'm thinking of doing that.
You know, what I'd like to find out, when I was a child, I used to feel something in the bedroom when I went to bed at night, and it would scare me. And then later on in life, I sort of lost it, but when I had a premature birth and the child died after several hours, when I went home, I felt this presence in the car telling me I would never have another child after that. And that's what happened. And every once in a while when I have a traumatic thing happen in my life, I feel this presence, and I don't know how to control it. You know, I'd like to know what this presence is and so forth.
Well, sometimes meditating helps. I'll tell you a story about a woman that I know who, since she was a little girl, every time she held her hand over the edge of her bed, she would feel another hand taking that. It was comforting to her. But she knew that if she brought her hand back, it would let go. But if she needed comforting, she'd put her hand out and someone would take her hand. She would feel another hand. It had a special feeling to
Is that
it.
in Miami?
This on the west coast of Florida.
If it was here, you'd hear a gunshot go off.
Right. No, she knew from a little girl that there was no body there, but she could just feel someone taking her hand. She knew she could almost feel it in her hand. But if it frightened her, like if her hand were out and she wasn't really thinking about it, and she pulled her hand back, always would let go. But whenever she reached out, this hand was there, and it helped her. And it was with her throughout her growing up. But then she got married, and she got pregnant, and she kind of forgot about it. It wasn't going. After she got pregnant, the hand wasn't there. And then she forgot about it because she thought, well, she doesn't really need it anymore. She had a little girl, And the girl was a few months old. They were in bed together, and the little baby took her hand the exact same way. She had the same feeling as the presence that was there throughout her growing up. It's almost like a guardian angel or something, and then comes to you.
Right.
And so sometimes...
It was a spirit waiting to be born.
Right. And don't worry about that it's something negative or something like that. Just relax, and you can talk in your mind to it or not. This is up to you, what you're comfortable with.
No, sometimes I do.
Right.
I've had psychic experiences that I won't go into now.
But this is a psychic experience, and it can be comforting. Just go with it, because so many stories I hear are beautiful about guardian angels or spirits around. I really think there's something to it. I hear it all the time, and I hear it from children, too, who oftentimes see or feel presences in their bedrooms. Maybe these imaginary playmates may not always be imaginary. Could be more.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Going back to when we were talking earlier about miscarriages and what people are finding through regressions and things of that nature, now bringing it up to what you were just saying. You are convinced now from your research that we do choose our parents?
I believe so. Over and over again in doing these regressions. Not always in the same relationship. Father and son might be a husband and wife, or sisters, or best friends in other lifetimes. It changes. Just like Joan Rivers, her mother and her daughter flip-flop. So I'm talking about choosing your parents, and this teenage daughter and mother in the audience, the mother turns to the daughter and says, "See, you chose me, so stop complaining." And the daughter's quick. She turns back to her mother and said, "I must have been in a hurry." So sometimes it's funny. We don't always get what we choose. They have free will. They may not turn out exactly the same way, but it's all right. In general, there's a plan.
Well, but if it's difficult, then maybe I'm just exploring with you, because then maybe when we're in our higher self, we know we have lessons to learn, so we choose a harder road and take that coming back.
Right. One of the hard roads is childhood sexual abuse. There's so much of that. There are estimates that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys have been sexually abused in childhood. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but it may even be more so. I've always been interested, why one daughter and not another, or why one and not the other two? What makes that one the target or the victim? And what I found in doing some of this work is that the women who have been abused, and then they're adults now and coming into my office, when we go back, we find not just the memory of childhood sexual abuse, that's there, but we found the relationship with the father or the uncle or whoever it is. That was also in past lives. Sometimes it explains why the incest barrier is crossed. There might have been a passionate relationship. I'm not saying that it makes it okay, no, but it may explain why it's easier to cross with one child and not another.
What about twins? What is that?
Twins oftentimes are so close. I've had cases and heard stories and compared notes with others doing this work of twins, and say one is in Europe and has an appendicitis or something, and the other in the United States may feel the pain and know that something's going on. There's a real psychic wavelength or connection that you often see in twins. And they don't just choose to be born together and be twins by accident. They've almost always been together before in some way. Maybe not as twins, maybe as lovers or as parent-child.
Good relationships, obviously, to choose to come back that identical.
Yes.
Well, line available in Broward, 525-3193. And Mona in Fort Lauderdale, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to say something.
Okay, could you turn your radio down, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I was brought up in a Hindu religion, and my parents always let us to know we have to be kind and be good to other people in order when you come back in another life, let you be something better than what you are. But this is sort of strange, I don't know. But my parents, I always feel I'm a stranger in that home. I feel as though I don't belong in that home. And I keep looking, I fantasize about what my parents should be like. Is this unusual?
Not so unusual. I've found this a lot because people have raised this question before, and sometimes we find that a particularly strong past life may still be influencing you. That is, you know this is not your family because you're still somewhat attached to the other one. This has happened a lot in India, and Dr. Ian Stevenson, who's the past chairman of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, has written over 2,000 cases of children with these types of experiences, many who felt they didn't belong, and then they would say where they belonged, and he would go and take them to their other family, and they would be able to point out and identify by name the members of that family, and say, this is my family, and sometimes the children know the name. That's how he would find the family name, the personal names. So this is not at all uncommon. It's usually a bleeding through type of dim memory of another lifetime when you were not in that family, in this relation.
So it's not abnormal.
No. But you do belong, unfortunately or fortunately, and you're in this family now. The other one is probably from the past.
Now, do I have to go through some kind of congressional to get to know who my past family is?
Not if it's not affecting you. You can just let it go. You may out of curiosity, but it's not necessary to do that.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm in my 30s, and it is. Sometimes I lay in bed and I would be thinking about my family, and I feel a complete stranger towards them, even though I was brought up in that home, and they were loving my parents, and they loved me a lot. I still feel like a complete stranger. I'm searching for something, and I don't know what it is.
Yours would be an interesting regression. I'm sure something would come up. Or you could meditate and see what you come up with, and look at your dreams, because sometimes the clues are there.
Right, because we were brought up in strict Hinduism, and we were brought up, we vegetarian and everything, and I do get strong dreams, but most of the time I see my parents, but I don't see the face.
It's close to the surface in you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Broward, 525-3193. There's a line there for you, 525-3193. Jim in North Miami, hello.
Hello, hi, Sandy.
Hi.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we talked.
Well,
WNWS.
I'm delighted you called tonight.
And Dr. Weiss, I've heard you quite a few times, and there's a set of experiences I'd always wanted to ask you about, but I was always almost too embarrassed to, because mainly I'm looking for assurance that my little choo-choo train has not gone chugging around the bend. Well, thus far, and all the times I've heard you speak on Sandy's show and others, I've never heard you mention anything about people claiming to have had experiences as animals. But from the time I was about 4 years old, I was aware of a fragment of a memory where I was standing in what seemed to be an enclosed room with a door that came about halfway up to my neck. But I felt as what I saw later in pictures. It was the stall at I took to be a racetrack, and I felt as though I had four legs. In other words, I felt as if I had a memory of being a horse. I know it sounds completely insane, but from the age of about 4, I seemed to have that fragmentary memory. And up until the age of 13, I had not the slightest interest in horses at all. I've always been interested, like you were, in scientific and technological things, astronomy, physics, electronics, things like that. I didn't even think of horses. But at the age of 13, like a lightning bolt, I can even remember the day it happened. I suddenly woke up one morning with an intense interest in them, and I read every book I could in the library on them and began writing and things like that. And I found that as I began doing this, that I seemed to be able to commiserate with them very well. In fact, there were several animals that I were later told that were said to be very unsociable with people that seemed to be drawn to me. And I would be minded to dismiss this whole thing, except for 2 bizarre experiences I've had. One was about 3 years ago when I was at a stable, and a mare that I'd never even seen before suddenly ran up to me, put her chin on my shoulder, closed her eyes, and sighed deeply. And the whole time I was there, followed me around, wouldn't leave my side. And when I did leave, neighed almost with a very sad sound. And the other experience is something that has happened twice within the past 2 years, where when I've been at stables, I have been able to know when a mare is in heat before the other people around have been able to. The thought just forms in my mind, this mare is in heat, and sure enough, within a few moments, the signs of it, that is vaginal discharge and spasmodic movement of the vulva, do occur. And I've since read in veterinary literature that the pheromones a mare emits when she's in heat are beyond the olfactory range of the human sense organ.
How can you tell all that's going on in the horse? How can you tell all of that's going on in the horse?
I don't know. That's the thing.
You just know that it's going on?
Yes, just that, like, for example, the 2 times it happened, I would drive up to a stable. One time it was at the stable I ride at, and I was just walking by, and I walked by the stall that one.
You are on the level, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard of anything like this?
Well, I don't find people as animals. Unlike in the Hindu religion, we were just talking about that, I don't find that when you're punished, say you go back as a cow or as a dog or a horse or something like that. But if you look at some of the Native American and other, particularly cultures that live close to the earth that were very dependent on animals, they had totems, they had kind of rituals where hallucinogenic drugs would be taken, and like in the Emerald Forest, that movie, and people would merge with the totem or the spirit of the animal. They didn't actually become, say, an eagle.
Just an energy.
An energy that they felt in it. And what I would say, in terms if we were doing research in past lives or something like that, that you probably were one, not that you were a horse, but one very close to animals. And that would be interesting or not, because they suddenly got awakened when you were 13. Now, I don't know. I'm speculating.
What about the memory that I seem to recall, where I could actually feel my body? I could feel the fact that I seem to have 4 legs and a long.
But that's what
and everything.
That's I don't know. But to me, that's like when they took the mescaline and peyote and did this totem stuff. They actually merged with the animals. I'm not saying that's that, but I don't know.
All right, thank you. That is the strangest thing.
Yeah, that's that. I haven't found that in
I think he was on the level.
Yeah, I do too. But I haven't found that in doing regression work, but I have found when people go back to be Indians or something like that, there's some of this odd stuff with the hallucinogens that they used in rituals, and merging with hawks particularly. The Egyptians did this, or American Indians with the hawk or the eagle. Horses were very important in many of these cultures, and ancient cultures too. I'm not saying that he was, but there's some closeness to that. But oftentimes there's a symbolic substitution too. If I were doing the Freudian interpretation, it would be a little bit different.
I was just going to say, there are, I'm sure, incredible Freudian interpretations of this.
I look at that too.
I'm just glad his name was Jim and not Ed. We will be right back on 790 Memories, WMRZ.
This is 790 Memories, WMRZ, where the Sanday Payton Show is in full swing. If you would like to express your opinion on tonight's topic, call Sandy and Dade at 653-8811 or 525-3193 in Broward.
Back to Dr. Brian Weiss and your calls after I talked to you for a moment about the Hamilton House, which is just a superb senior living rental community. If you've been looking at senior rental communities or living communities, and you haven't decided yet, that has to be simply because you haven't looked at Hamilton House, because once you look at Hamilton House, the decision is made. The absolutely most beautiful senior living rental community anywhere. It's in Plantation, and everything about it is special. From the quality of the construction to the award-winning chefs, the spacious apartment homes feature clothes washers and dryers, separate dressing areas, walk-in closets, screened balconies, exceptional security. It offers all of the social activities you could ask for, transportation, glamorous surroundings, inside and out. It is absolutely spectacular. You'll believe that when you see it. And the way to do that is call for an appointment, no obligation, so they can take you on a tour of this incredible community, and you'll see I am not exaggerating. To call and set an appointment to tour the Hamilton House, the number is 476-8500. That's 476-8500. And they're located at 8500 West Sunrise Boulevard in Plantation. 8500 West Sunrise Boulevard. The magnificent Hamilton House. Sanday Payton with psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss, best-selling author of Many Lives, Many Masters, his brand new book, Through Time into Healing. One line available, it's in Broward, 525-3193. Larry on a mobile phone, good evening.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Dr. Weiss, I read your book. It was a very extraordinary feeling reading your book. I have a question for you, and it relates to what happens to me, to my physical being, when I was reading some of your pages, and the only way to describe it is very, very, very unique. It was like energy or electricity just flows through my body. body. Starts at my head, it goosebumps, and it goes straight through my toes. Sometimes it lasts for a second, sometimes it lasts as long as 10 seconds.
While reading the book?
While reading it, but it's not geared towards only while I was reading it. See, the specifics came, and it's happening now because I'm speaking about it, but it happens when truths come out. But these are it's tough to explain, but it's
I think I know what you're saying. It's
universal truth.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like an electrical feeling, and you get goosebumps and all this, and it to me it's kind of a resonance, or sometimes a recognition. You can happen watching a movie.
Like the guardian angels are present.
Well, because, in other words, for most of his life, for example, this gentleman may not have thought about these things or done these things, but now reading about it, it's starting to awaken things in him that have been there.
Right, and sometimes that's a sign of this awakening. The Hindus and the Buddhists and people in the Eastern religions write about energy centers, chakras, opening up, and this is the kind of feeling that induces. That's a positive thing, by the way. That's very good. It's like a guidance system. It tells you kind of when truth is coming and where to go.
It's very funny because for the last 5 years or so, I've been pretty tuned into these truths. I've become very religious, but not with a religion. I happen to be of the Jewish faith. However, I just follow the energy, the truth. And as I do that, and I center on the feelings that I get from these truths when I'm in the conscious state thinking of a certain specific truth, I follow that. And when I follow that, I'm led down a path of success rather than a failure in whatever avenue it is.
It's fascinating, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I am reading your book. I tell you, my wife read it, I read it, and we'd love to just come and meet with you. As a matter of fact, I'd love to do a transgression personally.
You and 9 million other people.
Well, I have a specific reason. I'm adopted. I have no past. I only have a front. I have never looked for my past. However, in one of these conversations many years back, I've gone through a healing process of people around me dying. I have no qualms about people dying or my own death. I fear it. I have absolutely no fear of it.
You have a lot. You've learned a lot. And to even have that magnetic electrical feeling that guides you, that's very important. That would be very important in Eastern religions. Let me just say one thing about adoptions and my work. I found that if blood is thicker than water, spirit is thicker than blood, that people wind up where they're supposed to be, and that sometimes it can't happen naturally, or it doesn't happen naturally. It may be blocked for one reason or another, but you wind up with the people you're supposed to be with, and we find them in doing regressions. The biological parent is still important, but may just be the conduit or the entrance or the means by which you get to the other. So I find that adoptions really aren't that significant in terms of being away from the real parents or anything like that. You're together with the people that you're supposed to be with, and they have a past with you. But don't worry about the genetics of it. That's not the important thing. It's the spirit of it.
Nothing happens by accident.
Right.
Yeah.
And not adoption either.
Your book was phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That opens a line in Broward, 525-3193. There's one in Dade, 653-8811. Vera in Miami. Hello. Is Vera there? One more time. Vera? I hear somebody in the background. I hate to hang up because I know she waited.
There is someone.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Vera.
Yes. Yes. Sandy.
Yes.
It is so nice to hear your voice again.
Well, it's nice to hear yours.
Yes, I have a very peculiar question to ask the doctor. For over 2 years now, there is a peculiar sound coming from inward. Like I would hear, it happens at night when I'm in my bed. I would be hearing this sound. Sometimes it just gushed through my throat with a sound like, And another time, it would be a laughter. I'm anxious to know what it could be.
Where is this laughter coming from?
From inside my body.
Mm-hmm. I don't know yet. I wouldn't automatically be afraid of it. It's not The Exorcist coming or anything like that. But it's interesting because sometimes those are the clues. I find them either in dreams or in symptoms like that. Sometimes it smells that something else is going on. But without your meditating or going deeper into it, I don't know what it is. Does it frighten you?
Yes, it does.
Well, I think
sometimes as I'm going off to sleep, I hear this sound. Sometimes, and another time, I don't know.
That would make me a little nervous if I was going right to sleep.
I can't rush off it because I know that some people would say automatically that these are attached spirits or something, haunted or ghosts or something like that. But I don't know that this is the case or isn't the case.
How would you know?
You wouldn't know. So you'd have to explore it more. I'm not sure yet. I know people where this happens, but see if you can talk to it in your mind and find out more. Ask questions. See what comes up, what feels. But just put aside your fear because that might block it. You need to relax, to go into it, close your eyes, see if you can produce the sound, not when you're going to sleep, but at other times, and being more in control of it.
Yeah, but it's just at night, It doesn't happen in the day.
And how long? For years and years?
I think it's a little over 2 years now.
Oh, so it hasn't progressed to anything that harms you.
No, but it goes on every night.
It's that same person has never left.
Right. Is this not a new house
you
or something?
You do vacuum occasionally, right?
You didn't move 2 years ago into a new house, did you? Or a different place?
No, I'm living in this house now for 13 years.
Oh, okay. Well, it can't be something new. I think we don't have enough information, but I don't know what to tell you over the air because I'm starting to feel like psychic investigators of whatever. But there's so many people having symptoms, having extraordinary experiences, whether it's smells or voices or sounds, that aren't necessarily weird. I don't know what yours are, but if others have questions about psychic phenomena, we can talk about that too, because it's not just past lives. There's so much more than meets the eye.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
When you first started this, you started writing. It took you 4 years to write the book, and Many Lives, Many Masters came out in 1988. And it was basically, you started with the phenomenon of your patients going into past lives. But now you have progressed, not only into finding that their regressions are helping cure them of physical, mental, and emotional illnesses, but because you're releasing the past, but now you say it's taking you even further into psychic phenomena.
Right, because just like sitting here tonight and having people call up with questions that range well beyond past lives, because they really are connected. And so I deal a lot with near-death experiences, with out-of-body experiences, with dreams that may be precognitive, that is, dreams that happen before the event, that foretell the future. Remember the story when the Florida lottery first began, of a family that came down to the west coast of Florida to recuperate because of the death of their 22-year-old daughter in New Jersey. This was in all the newspapers.
I remember this story.
Yeah, not mine. And I read about it, and I learned more about it because it was so interesting, and this happens all the time. So once you start studying the mind, more happens. Well, the father of this girl had a very vivid dream. She came to him in the dream and said, "I've caused you a lot of pain. I want to give you something back. Play my lottery ticket." And he remembered when he woke up, and it was a much more vivid dream than his usual dreams, that she had a losing ticket to the New Jersey State Lottery in her car back in New Jersey. He called up the neighbor who got the ticket out of her car, read the numbers to him. This was on a Thursday night. And the following Saturday night, they had bought one ticket with that ticket won.
I remember this story.
So that's like maybe more than a precognitive dream, maybe a dream visit. So the more that I studied these things, the more I find out this is happening all the time. Little children speaking foreign languages, how do they do that? Precognitive dreams, déjà vu, where it's uncanny.
Does that explain, at least to you, the idiot savant phenomenon also, where they can't do anything except one thing, and they do that like nobody else can?
Yes, it may be very, very psychic, a tremendous ability. It may even be a past life coming through? How does a young Mozart at age 5 write symphonies? Where is that coming from? Was he a musician previously and brought that talent with him? Or is he tapping in, like the psychoanalyst Carl Jung wrote about, to the collective unconscious, a stream of all knowledge? Whatever it is, it's phenomenal. And if we could do that, we could really change our way of looking at the world, because it all leads to the same place, and that is feeling more peaceful, getting more joy out of life now, and getting rid of this stuff that we talked about, violence and hatred and anger and greed and all those things. They're just not that important.
But the process you have to go through to get rid of all of that. How many lives, what's the maximum amount of lives you've regressed at this point that somebody has gone through? I mean, we have no way of knowing how many lives we go through.
No, I've had people describe kind of seeing their lives like a strand of pearls, all connected by the strand, the light, the soul, but each pearl being like a lifetime, and they'll see anywhere from 10 or 12 to 80 or 90 in that range. In the Buddhist religion, they talk about 500 or 1,000, and in Hinduism, in the Jewish religion, they talk about 4 to 6. So I don't know, but I'm finding
we do it quickly.
Right.
We learn our lessons quickly.
Right.
We don't want to suffer forever.
I don't know. and then we graduate. So whether it's 4, whether it's 6, whether it's 80, whether it's 500. What's the difference?
There's so many things to learn and so many things to correct. I would think it has to be hundreds of times.
I think probably, yeah. I find that 80, 90, 100 is about the average. Not that I work through them all. Not that in regression therapy we find them all. We find the relevant ones to now. But people talk about the 80s, 90s, 70s. I think also, Sandy, some of us are newer here, may not have been here as much.
I'll tell you, with what you have been opened up to in this life and what you have learned and are now passing on to others, your next time is going to be incredible.
I wonder.
It's going to be incredible.
Well, we'll see.
Oh, I hope I know you next time. That's incredible. And we will get back to your calls and the incredible Dr. Brian Weiss. But first, let's find out how incredibly well we can do financially if we listen to the advice of Mitch Hirsch, first Vice President for Investments at Payne Weber in Plantation. Catch us up on the stock market, give us an investment suggestion for today, and then we'll get back to your call, so don't hang up. And Mitchell, how incredible was it today?
The opinions expressed on this paid program are those of the host, guest, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of WMRZ. Please direct all program inquiries to the host of this show. You're listening to the Sandy Payton Show on 790 Memories WMRZ, South Miami, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. To be a part of tonight's show, in Dade, call 653-8811, and in Broward, 525-3193.
Sandy Payton with renowned psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss and best-selling author and lecturer. His first bestseller that really was the all-time bestseller, certainly in the state of Florida. It was on the best-selling list for 123 weeks. Many Lives, Many Masters. His new book, and by the way, that is still in all the bookstores in paperback. His new book out now is called Through Time into Healing. Past Life Regression. How many lives have we had? Did we have past lives? And from Brian's hypnotic regressions to cure mental illnesses, that's how he discovered this. He found, yes, indeed, we have. And now he's also found that it helps cure illnesses, mentally, physically, emotionally, and it really has evolved into something incredible. His new book, Through Time into Healing. And we will go right to Albert in Fort Lauderdale. Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
This is Albert. I was listening to your program tonight while I was driving to work at about 7 o'clock in my car radio, and it just accidentally was the one thing that I wanted all my life to hear about, and about Dr. Brian Weiss, was that?
Yes.
Weiss, W-I-S-E?
W-E-I-S-S.
Oh, W-I-S. And I wanted to find out how to get his book.
Any bookstore.
Yeah, what's the name of the title, please?
Well, the first one, Albert, is Many Lives, Many Masters. That's probably a good place to start.
All right. Many lives and many pastors.
No, Masters.
Masters.
Right. All right. Thank you. Eileen in Miami. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sandy. I just want to tell you I'm thrilled you're back on the radio.
Thank you.
And Dr. Weiss, I did read Many Lives, Many Masters when it first came out, and I did a workshop with you one day. I have studied metaphysics off and on for years, and I've been told by a number of people that, and I have found it to be true, that most relationships in this lifetime for me have been extremely karmic, and I can feel that. I've recently ended a relationship with someone with whom I've been back and forth for years and years, and have always had a sense that I was married to this man in another lifetime. And any astrologer or psychic I've been to has told me the same thing. My question is that I still feel a sense of, or a lack of completion, even though I think our paths this lifetime are very different, and I don't think we're going to be together. And yet I still feel terribly connected to this person, and wonder if, when one is regressed, if there's more of a sense of completion about relationships.
Sometimes there is, because you figure out why you're together, and then you can let go. There is an incredible connection, as you said, because you've been together before, according to these people, but it means so much more when you experience that yourself. That's what I'm finding therapeutically, that when you go through the regression experience, it's more therapeutic than a psychic saying, yeah, you were together before. Now, you're feeling it.
I mean,
right.
I know it, but I don't have details about, in my own mind. I don't know in what respect we were together and what our life was like together or any of that. And so I still feel like my husband is with another woman now. I mean, it's very weird, I know.
Do you have a husband now?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you have no one getting jealous saying, wait a minute.
No.
But your husband is with another woman. And when you think about that, you don't necessarily have to get married. I say this to people all the time. Because you were together before doesn't mean you have to do this or do that or do it in a certain way this time. There's something that you need to work out, but you need to find out what that is, and so that you can work it out. It may not be that you have to be together. So many times I've found another thing here that causes sadness, and that is this concept of soulmates, people who have been together through time in very close and intimate relationships, almost like parts of a whole. I think there really is something to that, although I'm not sure that it's just one person. There may be a little group of 4 or 5 or 6, and we're all soulmates in that category, although we're all connected to everybody at other levels too. What happens when soulmates meet? And that's, I think, destined.
Very powerful.
Yes, it's very powerful. But one of them is ready, and the other one's not. The other one's still working through usually his stuff.
And that's exactly what's happening.
Right. See, the timing is off, and that happens a lot.
You'd think that if you're going to meet your soulmate that you've met and been with in other lives, that at the time you'd meet in every life, that you'd both be at the point of meeting, or else why would you meet?
Hope so.
Yeah.
Why would you meet then?
But sometimes you find one in an old relationship that they should have gotten out of, but they haven't yet because of fear or some other reason. It might be abusive. It might be
that's exactly
dead, old, outworn.
Destructive, and yet...
And they haven't. Because of fear, they haven't gotten out of the old relationship and moved into something that would really be a growth thing. And this happens all the time. One is ready, the other's not. And that causes profound sadness.
Oh, it's deeply sad, yeah.
Yes.
But you do think that regression does often bring
it will show you something. Why?
Maybe she's there to open him up to that is not taking the right path at the moment.
Right. The main thing is for you to not get sad about that, because it's the whole thing of free will, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't do it for him. You can't open him up by yourself. No matter who it is, he's got to do that. He may not be ready. Oh, I come across this all the time in couples. This passion, it's all right there, but one of them's not ready. And it's not necessarily because he is in a marriage. It may be or it may not be. But I have a feeling that that marriage is kind of old, huh?
Well, he's not actually married. I mean, this particular person has, been in and out of my life, and he acknowledges and recognizes that we have a very old relationship, and where, that he's also equally as drawn to me as I am to him. But I really do think our spiritual paths are different this lifetime, and it's a sad realization for me, but I know it is something that he also acknowledges, but I think he's just got something else he has to do.
Yeah, you may have outgrown him in that sense, but he may catch up another time. I don't know, or this time.
Mm-hmm.
Be patient. That's a hard one. That's a hard lesson.
It is. It really is. But thank you. And I know
maybe that is her lesson.
Right.
Patience. You never know.
Yeah, it could be. It is difficult to get an appointment with you, though. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting like 100-some calls a day now.
God bless you.
What did you tell me, that now the appointments are being made for 2 years from now?
It may be less. It may be a year.
Year and a half.
I don't even know, because these national shows and shows like this, there are just not enough people doing this. I really have to train more.
Are people flying in for appointments?
Oh, yeah, from London, from Los Angeles.
Oh, God bless you. Your work is marvelous. It really is.
Thanks.
And
That's sweet of you.
a lot of people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Teresa in North Miami Beach. Hold on for just a moment. What did you want?
Well, coming on the air like this and being able to reach so many people at one time, this is great, because there really are not enough people doing the work. So, for example, we can talk about these things. People can relate to their own experiences. They can read or listen to the tapes.
Can you do this self-hypnotically?
Yeah. In the back of the new book, I have a script for making a tape, or I have tapes of my voice from a workshop doing a regression experience.
But can it be dangerous? I mean, sometimes when you regress, I'm sure you can experience some very painful things, if not some violent things. If there's no one there with you, can it be a dangerous thing to do?
If it needs integrating, that's where it helps to have a therapist around, not necessarily on the spot, because it's really like a childhood memory. You can go back to it at different degrees. It doesn't just come up and overwhelm you.
If you do it to yourself, how do you bring yourself out?
You'll come out of it anyway. You may fall asleep. You'll come out of it. The worst thing that can happen is falling asleep, and then you'll wake up. It's like taking a nap. If you're listening to a tape, for example, I have a tape of me doing these regressions that I let my patients use, and I sell them at workshops, not in stores, but it brings you into it and takes you out of it. So, like the script at the end of Through Time into Healing, it teaches you to do it yourself. Your subconscious mind is the greatest protector. It won't let you go too far. It'll bring you out of it. You'll just open your eyes or pop up if anything uncomfortable happens. The danger is when an untrained person is pushing you through it and doesn't really let you out, because left to yourself or with a skilled therapist, those are the two safest ways, actually.
Has anyone, because I'm
yes, sure.
Every time I try to do something off of a tape, listen to something, I fall asleep, and it's a waste. I can never ever get past the first 5 minutes, and it's so frustrating. So when you put people under for hypnosis, do some people fall asleep and lose the whole thing?
With my tape, that happens a lot. People using it at night, they're lying in bed, they're tired, they fall asleep. Yeah. So I tell them, well, play it in the morning, or try it sitting up.
In your office?
In my office, I don't let them do that, because it's their time, and it's difficult to come in, and it's expensive, but I'm not going to let them nap through it, so it's not fair. So, although it's giving me an idea, right? Easier day, right? No, I talk to them and they talk to me, so it's much more active, and they're not sleeping.
Oh, okay. Teresa in North Miami Beach, hello.
Yes. Sandy, I would like to ask Dr. Weiss about my son, who is disabled. He was just about to embark on a very special professional career when he became disabled. And that was about 10 years ago. He always had a very quiet but magnetic personality. People seemed to be drawn to him. He was very highly respected, and he still is. He still exudes this personality.
What happened to him? In the terms of your question, is it about his disability?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, he developed what two prominent doctors have called Marfan syndrome.
Which is?
Doctors disagree, but this he cannot walk, he cannot eat normal foods. He can talk just very briefly.
And your question about that is what?
Is if he regresses, if he should go through the process you're talking about, I'm not familiar with this at all, if he found out anything about his any past lives, would this help him come through it? I don't mean physically. His personality at home has changed.
Sure.
He's very bitter. He's very angry.
Right. I don't know.
Explodes. And he sometimes gets violent.
Right.
And this is not the real person.
Right. But sometimes that's the illness.
I beg pardon?
You see, I don't. No one's ever done this work with Marfan's, which is a connective tissue illness and the long fingers and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so nobody knows the answer to that yet. I don't think it's ever been done in the world that someone's regressed somebody with this illness. But sometimes the technique I use, for example, hypnosis, requires the ability to concentrate and to focus, and sometimes that illness gets in the way of it because there are psychological changes. So I can't tell you yes because nobody knows.
I see. Well, I was hoping that perhaps if he learned something about himself from before.
Well, but you couldn't say
out of this emotional
you couldn't say yes or no to anybody really, because you don't know what results are until.
Right, you really have to do it. And I can say, yeah, with phobias, like I was seeing a physician's wife from Miami not long ago who had a lifelong fear of the dark. She would not be her face in the water, which for her was a lot. So if it's a phobia like that, I can pretty much say,
like this.
Yeah, good chance. But with Marfan's, I don't think so.
All right, Teresa, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know I drowned in a past life. I know I did.
Well, water's been around forever, for thousands of years, and I think we all have at some time or another.
Shirley in Coconut Creek, hello.
Hello. May I speak with Dr. Weiss?
Sure, I'm right here, Shirley.
Dr. Weiss, I've taken 3 workshops with you.
Wow.
Prior to the time I took the workshops, I thought I was crazy because I had some very strange experiences in Europe. And the 3rd workshop that I took with you was in Virginia Beach. It was for, I think, over a weekend, 3 days. And that was the most profound, the most disturbing experience I've ever had. There were 400 people at that particular workshop, if you remember.
This is up at Edgar Casey's?
Right, yeah. And there were 2 Oriental women sitting behind me, and staring at me. And I was very uncomfortable. And but this went on until the next day. And then we had an experiment where 4 different people had to get together. Well, one of the older Oriental women came into this little group of 4 where I was, and we started to talk. We had some questions to answer, and then we had to tell of our most recent experience. My most recent experience was in Japan. I always had to be surrounded by any Oriental furniture. Anything Oriental appealed to me. And because of, since the workshops with you, I knew there had to be a connection. So I went to China about 3 years ago and spent 22 days looking for a connection, but nothing happened. The following year, I didn't give up. I went to Japan and spent a good many, I think 12 days there. The 5th day in Japan, I walked into a shogun palace and all hell broke loose. I couldn't breathe. I broke out in a sweat. My heart was pounding. And I knew that palace like I knew the 10 fingers on my hand. And I even knew that when you stepped on the threshold, there would be a sort of whistle. Well, the reaction was so intense that I knew I was either a handmaiden or a warrior in the Shogun Palace. So I discussed this. This is at the group of 4, and the Oriental woman, when I finished the story, said to me, "You weren't a handmaiden. You weren't a warrior. You were a shogun. You are of noble birth." And I looked at her. She said, "I have pictures of you at home." I said, "But I have blue eyes and blonde hair." She says, "The way you speak, the way you look, the way you hold your head, and your face, you are of noble birth. You are a shogun. And I went over to that other woman she was sitting with, and the other woman said the same thing. I have pictures of you at home. Well, you know what happened? I began to understand myself. I began to understand my impatience for ineptitude with people who are slow. And I used to say to myself, who do you think you are? And then many times I'd say, let that head off. In my head. And I would say, where does this come from? Since that experience, I understand myself so much better, and I have improved myself. And I feel so good about myself now.
That experience that's the kind of thing where the experience in the temple. Now, that doesn't tell me that you were a shogun or not a shogun. This is coming, again, from people who might be psychic or something else, and the Edgar Cayce groups attract that type of people, which is fine. But you certainly knew that temple. You knew the bell sound would go off. You knew your way around, and it resonated, and the difficulty breathing, all of the physiological changes. That's the kind of thing I see when people meet themselves in the past or where they've been before, like a deja vu with emotion and physical change.
It's an awesome feeling when it happens because you're not expecting it to happen.
It's very profound. It's the innermost recesses of your heart, your mind, and your body is affected. It's just very powerful.
And people should pay attention to that because there are a lot of clues there. I remember seeing a woman who, on her honeymoon years ago, went to southern Europe, and she was in Athens, had to leave, had the same kind of reaction. And emotional reaction, very, very uncomfortable, had to get out of there, had to leave, felt like impending doom, went to Rome, and she was fine. So it wasn't just the marriage or being away from home. Paris, she was fine. Only in Athens, and she, in a regression years later, in my office, found herself being thrown off a cliff there many, many years ago in Greece, and that was the reaction. So it is pretty specific to the place, and amazing things can happen. Sometimes people speak languages. Like if you were able in that temple to speak Japanese, that would have been another interesting finding. I try to study these things a little more clinically. So I've had that happen before. The novelist Taylor Caldwell in Italy was able to speak Italian. She had never learned it. She had never spoken it before. That came to her. She had lived there before, too. So this is a very common kind of deja vu resonance.
All right, thank you.
Stern, I think, wrote about that with the Search of a Soul.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, and just one more word. I don't give takes when I go visit people. I bring your books.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Shirley.
Yeah.
That opens a line in Broward, 525-3193, one in Dade, 653-8811. And we'll continue in just a moment. But if you are nearsighted or farsighted and you'd like to see what you've been missing without glasses and without contact lenses because you're just sick of the glasses or you're just tired of adjusting them all the time, even with contact lenses, you have to put glasses on when you do sports, for example, and you sweat, and the glasses are constantly riding down your nose. And possibly you've heard about radial keratotomy, RK surgery, but you're not quite sure what it is. It's a 5-minute procedure which can permanently correct your vision. It's a precise procedure which can eliminate or reduce nearsightedness and astigmatism and allows for improved vision without the use of glasses or contact lenses. It's intended for people who are unsuccessful or unhappy wearers of glasses or contact lenses. It's a painless, in-office procedure performed with state-of-the-art equipment, and it has already helped over 500,000 Americans to achieve excellent vision. And at the Sheris Eye Institute, they have not only performed many, many of these surgeries, but they teach you all about it prior to the surgery so that you're sure it is for you. That you can call them and get a videotape free of charge where it explains everything about the surgery and what you can expect. And then, after you see the videotape, you say, yes, this is for me. Then you call Dr. Lowell Sheris, sit down, make an appointment, and have a consultation, and then you will know for sure. And most of Dr. Sheris' patients are able to resume normal activities within 1 or 2 days. So you will find out if it's for you, and you will also get to meet Dr. Sheris, who you will find to be very honest, very thorough, and very realistic. And I like that. He doesn't give unrealistic expectations. He tells you exactly what will happen. There are no injections in this surgery, by the way, if you're worried about that. You will not be out, just anesthetic drops and Valium by mouth. It's an all-inclusive fee with a 1-year follow-up, and if any enhancement procedures are needed, there is no extra charge. There's no guarantee, obviously, with any surgery, but everyone in the world who has had this done does become less nearsighted. And if you are still curious about whether you can live without glasses, and this has always been your dream, gee, I'd like to get rid of the glasses, call the Sherris Eye Institute, that's S as in Sandy, Herris as in Sandy, Eye Institute in Tamarack at 7465 North University Drive, and ask to have a videotape sent to you free of charge. And then, after you see the tape, and if you think it's for you, you call the Sherris Eye Institute in Broward at 305-722-6800. 305-722-6800. Outside of Broward, 1-800-928-EYES. 1-800-928-EYES for the Sherris Eye Institute.
Agree or disagree? It's up to you. To make your comments live on the air with Sanday Payton, call the WMRZ studios in Dade at 653-8811 or 525-3193 in Broward.
Many Lives, Many Masters, his first bestseller, his new book, bound to have the same success through time into healing. Psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss, as we talk about past life regression. One line available. It's in Broward, 525-3193. Have you had any of those experiences where did you have it before this opened up to you as a psychiatrist? And have you had it since, as to going someplace and taking a breath and going, oh, I've been here?
I've had it before. I did, as a child, I was more aware of these things. And then as I got into high school and college, and I was a chemistry major and left brain and scientific, I must have pushed it all down because I wasn't having the same type of experience, or at least I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't acknowledging it. Since I've been open to it, I have it more. I pay attention to it. But that last call from Shirley was very typical of the kind of deja vu resonance that you have when you visit a place you have been before, but not in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm. In fact, people I respect in this field, not psychiatric, but in the psychic field phenomenon, have said, and numerous ones have said it to me, so I believe that it must be right then. When you are drawn to a place, even if you've never been there, and you don't know why, and you don't have any past memory of it, you're just drawn to it. They say that you have been there before and you've had a good experience there, and you're drawn there.
Yes, these may be the non-hypnotic ways of knowing past lives or things like that. It could also be in dreams. When you dream of yourself sometimes in ancient dress or antique times, that may actually be a memory and not a Freudian symbol or distortion. Also, oftentimes people are not aware consciously of what they're drawn to. They may be when they stop and look. For example, I was giving a talk in California. A young woman was sitting in front of me dressed all in black, looked a little strange, and I asked her, have you ever been drawn to a particular culture or historical period? And she said, no, I can't think of anything, and her friend sitting next to her whacked her with an elbow and said, what are you talking about? Your whole apartment is 19th century Japanese art, Japanese this. And there she is sitting in front of me, dressed like a ninja warrior, and she wasn't aware. It's a kind of block that until you step back and see, how is your house done? What kind of art do you collect? Are you always drawn to French Renaissance or Italian this or British this or Japanese or Chinese or American Indian or whatever, Peruvian, and those are the clues. And then you can go and follow up, and you may resonate, but you have to be open, and I was closed.
Bob in Fort Lauderdale, hello.
Hello. I'd like to speak to the doctor.
I'm right here, Bob.
Okay. Doctor, the reason I'm calling is a relative of mine seen you on one of the television shows, and she has a son who is autistic. And someplace in the show, I didn't see the show, but you mentioned about the psychic ability.
Bob, can I interrupt you for just 1 second? You're not going to believe this, but I swear to God, here it is. Just as you were starting to talk to Brian, I wrote the word autism down on a piece of paper because I wanted to, it suddenly occurred to me, how does this relate to autism?
It's right
I just
there.
got a shot right down the middle of my back. Go ahead.
Well, my wife can read my mind without any trouble.
But now Sandy's doing it, so...
I think I'm a sender. But she's seen your show, and she has a son who has autism. He's about 30 years of age now. And just in the past 2 years, or less than that possibly, somebody had introduced him to a machine where he types, and it brings out his answers. And he does fairly well with it when he's not in one of his spells. But she called me. I'm a hypnotist also, but I don't charge for it, and I'm not a doctor. So she called me to ask me, because you said something about a psychic ability. And I know very little bit about autism, but I told her that if and he does claim he can read her mind. So she just called me to see if it was possible that you knew what she was talking about. Otherwise, I'd have just been listening.
No, I'm glad that you called, because we don't know this. These are areas of research that have to be done, and autism is a fruitful area. Just in the past few months, people are asking me more and more about it. I haven't worked with these people yet. Mostly in my practice, it was phobias and fears and this type of thing, but it would be very interesting. I don't know about the concentrating capacity or the ability to be hypnotized, but they may not even need that. They could just maybe go into that state. I know they may be very psychic. They're very aware. As the left brain is suppressed, those abilities take over. But it's a fascinating area. I don't think anyone has done research in this area of autism that I know of.
Well, when he was a child, he was extremely bright. Extremely, for his age, every age up until around 7 or 8 when he started to go into this autism, he was extremely bright and way ahead of his times. But when he went into this, it seems to me, not knowing anything about it, that when his critical factor is in, when he's using it, he's not normal, but he can respond. But it seems to me that when he loses this critical factor, then he turns not into an animal, but I mean it's very weird actions. You know what autism does to children. And I don't know what to tell her. I told her to follow through with the psychic ability. If he claims he's got it, that
I think they're aware of so much more, but not able to express it. Just like people in comas or in other conditions may.
Well, that's what was making me think of it. It's so weird that he brought that up just at the time I was writing it, because in our discussion, I was thinking, for example, with miscarriages, I'll come back later when I'm better, that these might be, and it's just, who knows, I'm just letting my mind go on this one, souls that should have not been here, but came back too fast, and then once they got here went, I don't want to be here.
Right. That could easily be too. Why are they here? Should they be here? Are they trapped into it for this lifetime? Which, as we talked about before, is just a blink anyway.
Yeah, right.
But there could be so many reasons nobody's looked at this yet. It's still such a new field. More and more people are coming into it. More physicians, more doctors, pediatricians telling me stories of the children that they see. So autism has to be close by. We've got to look at this. It's such an interesting and pervasive illness, and these kids are so talented in some ways, or the idiot savants, or the Mozart.
Would I be able to contact you at your office and bring him in?
Well, I'm
in about 2.5 years.
But, let me tell you something. It's been 30 years now.
Yeah.
And the help is...
Well, he's listed in the phone book, but lots of luck. That's all I can tell you.
He has to write me a letter and explain the whole thing, and I read every letter, and I respond to that, and with Carol's help, over time, I get back to you. It's much easier for me to do it letters, because the phone is so jammed.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Line available in Broward, 525-3193, 525-3193. Maybe not, but I just, in our discussion tonight, and all the discussions we've had over the years, I think that you and others like you who are doing what you're doing, you and the Dr. Moody's of this world, probably are on the brink of the major breakthrough in history. Before, when we were talking about, for example, the multiple personality disorders and how one of the personalities can have a physical illness that another one of the personalities does not, is so mind-boggling when you think about that.
I think this is the area of research, the power of the mind,
right.
The mind and healing. Bill Moyers, Bernie Siegel, all these people putting the pieces together. There's another area altogether that I don't want to lose people. I'm not talking about physics in a technical sense, but the physicists have become the mystics of the 90s. They are finding out, and these are hard scientists, physicists, that consciousness exists outside of the body. Not just in the mind, but outside. For example, they've known for a while that the expectations of the observer, the researcher, can affect how subatomic particles react in their experiments. It may go left if a scientist expects it to go left, and it may veer right if the scientist is expecting it to go right. They've known this for quite a while. How does the particle know what the scientist is expecting? How does the consciousness, the mind of the physicist, affect the path of the subatomic particle? For example, an electron sometimes behaves as a wave and sometimes as a particle. And it depends. If you're looking at it, it tends to behave as a particle. And if you look away, it behaves as a wave. How does it know when you're looking? So all of these questions that physicists are asking now.
It's like the joke about the thermos that you can put hot or cold in. How does it know?
And that's right. That's right. How does it know? I'm doing some research with the physics department at New York University. They're studying healers. They're bringing them from China, where these are in medical schools, because there it's a different way of looking at healing. These are people who work with their hands, but they're also professors in the medical school in Beijing. And they're studying, are they actually emitting energies? Is there an energy that's associated with the ability to touch and heal that way? And they're finding that there is some energy. It's between 6 and 8 hertz. This is a frequency. And they're starting to measure it. It's amazing. Bringing people from China to be studied in physics labs in New York City to study healing. So I think that we're getting hard scientists, physicists, chemists, people like that, to study consciousness now. This is a major breakthrough. And what you're saying, I'm not going to talk any more about physics, but it's fascinating to me.
It is incredible
how this is all coming together. Maybe it's the 90s. It's time for it to come together. The world is needing it desperately. But even the scientists are kind of kicking into this evolution of consciousness.
It's also ironic, in a way, at a time when we're concentrating so heavily on healthcare and the cost of healthcare and how unaffordable healthcare is, that in the scheme of things, obviously it's not near but not far, and we talk about lifetimes, we're very close to possibly finding out that you don't need healthcare, it's how you think.
Right. It's amazing, and that's going to be so cost-effective because so much of healing has to do with the mind. As a physician, I've seen this so many times. You can have 2 people in the hospital with the exact same diagnosis and same condition, one who gives up and the other who fights it. Now, that's just a mental state, but everyone knows who's going to get better and who's not, and that's the power of the mind. It affects the immune system and all systems.
Lynn in South Beach, hello.
Yes, good evening. Oh, what a beautiful program.
Thank you.
You know, I had the best philosophy teacher, and he had been teaching me. At the time he was teaching me, I quite didn't understand everything, but today I do understand. There's the power of positive thinking. And I never get depressed. I want to tell you that. I don't take any kind of sleeping pills. For instance, if I should get sort of upset, I go to my solar plexus and I say, all right, at ease, nothing's going to go wrong, everything's going to be right. And then there is no death, and we're going to school on this planet. We're here to learn, is what my philosophy teacher said. And that's just what I heard you say. We're going to school on this planet, and we're here to learn.
That's it. That's really the bottom line.
And it's so beautiful as you go on, like I did from year to year. I learned compassion, respect, and I have such a good feeling inside of my body.
How did you learn to concentrate on your solar plexus? Who taught you that?
My philosophy teacher. Listen, I won't take up too much of your time, Dr. Weiss, but I have the utmost respect for you, and I will write either a letter or come visit you and explain everything about my philosophy teacher.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And that opens the line in Dade, 653-8811. Broward is 525-3193, 525-3193. Well, I hate to get back to the mundane realities of everyday life, but we have to because while we're learning, we also have to be living, and we have to be living cleanly, so it means it's time to clean your carpet. Yes, it is. Dirt is growing in that carpet daily, hourly, by the minute. If you're walking on it, that carpet's dirty. And you say, well, I can't see that it's dirty. Well, you're not going to see it, but if you're cleaning your floors, then obviously the same dirt that's on your floor is in your carpet. So by the time you're going to see it on your carpet's filthy. It's not dirty. But seriously, and well, that was serious, but even more seriously, you're breathing all that bacteria in. A lot of us like to sit on the floor or lie on the floor, and you're breathing all that bacteria in, and a lot of people get sick and don't even realize it's from the carpet not being clean. Freshen it up. It freshens the air up. It freshens your health. And it helps the health of your carpet, because carpet lasts longer when it's clean. Dirt wears out the fibers of carpet. So you'll have to replace the carpet much sooner. And having Dry Concepts come is a miracle. I mean a miracle. Not only do they clean deeper, and they do a better job than anyone who's come into your home, but because their unique dry cleaning process is so unique, your carpet will be dry in 3 to 4 hours after they leave. That's unheard of when you have your carpet cleaned. You know that, and that's why most people put it off. You won't have to put it off anymore. Your carpet will be dry in 3 to 4 hours, not 3 to 4 days later like most other carpet cleaning companies. And you won't have that chemical smell like other companies. You call the only carpet cleaning company Dry Concepts. In Dade, 945-3636, 945-3636. Broward, 581-4739, 581-4739 for Dry Concepts.
You're listening to the Sandy Payton Show, live on 790 Memories, WMRZ.
Sandy Payton with psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss, lecturer, best-selling author of Many Lives, Many Masters. His newest book, Through Time into Healing. Of course, Many Lives, Many Masters is still in the bookstores in paperback, but his new book out now is Through Time into Healing, How Past Life Regression also helps erase trauma and transform the mind, the body, and cure a lot of illnesses, mentally, physically, emotionally, by releasing things that we brought with us from past lives. And we have a line available in Broward at 525-3193, 525-3193. Dorothy in North Miami Beach, hello.
Sandy?
Yes.
I got the two best at the same time, right? Thank you for coming back.
Well, thank you.
And I'll catch you on another program. But Dr. Weiss, heartfelt thanks to you for your book, Many Lives, Many Masters. It's like 40-odd years, the fear of death has always consumed me. And when I got your book and I sat down and I read it through without getting up, without stopping, and that was the only time in my life that I put that book down and said, if it happens now, it's okay. It has never left me since. And if you only knew the fear factor before in reference to death, like seeing myself in a casket and saying, I can't breathe, or seeing myself in a mausoleum and saying, I can't see the sunlight, I went into a panic that would last for hours and hours and hours.
Thank you for saying that. That's really the reason that I wrote Many Lives. It's the fear of death. So many people had it, and I kept resisting because I was afraid of my reputation and career as chairman of Mount Sinai.
Oh, yes.
It was not the thing to do. Mount Sinai is a very conservative hospital, but I had to do it because so many people were feeling like you, 40 years of fear, and then in a few hours you can get rid of the whole thing. And that's That's beautiful. Thank you.
And as I used to volunteer in Mount Sinai and walk up and down, go past your office. Thank you, dear heart.
Oh, that's nice.
Because you have released me from a fear that was just, and I don't think many people know that, but your limbs turn to water, and there's no way for you to grasp reality that you're going to be. It sounds very stupid. You're dead, but still you're saying, I'm in the casket in the ground, now I can't breathe. Now, I'm in the mausoleum, and now I can't see daylight. It is an alive fear factor that takes over. And yet, when I read this book, so I don't know how to thank you. It's past the point of saying thanks.
Well, thank you. I want to tell you, though, that I have found people, because when you read the book, there was one of Catherine's deaths in Egyptian times, but also other people who were buried alive, who were entombed with the pharaoh or the ruler, and this is often causing a claustrophobia or a fear of being buried alive or in closed spaces, because it actually has happened. I'm not saying it always happens, but that is a very common burial practice in China, in Egypt, in many cultures, and that's caused a lot of fear. Now, maybe even the kind of fear that you were feeling, and that released her, that releases you, even to know that there's a connection to that. So that's okay. It won't happen now. That was then. It's over. It's done. You can let it go.
And if something happens to me, or I'm close into an accident, or I'm very ill, which there has happened, and I can just about sit back now and say, if it's time, it's all right. It will be all right. And that is very hard for people to understand if they haven't been where I've been. It's a release of. It's hard to explain.
It's great to get rid of fear. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I have one thing to ask you, too. I have noticed in the past, since the 80s, I don't know if there's a reason for this or what. Anyone who has gone out of their way to hurt me excessively, or harass me, or viciously, has paid for it in some way along the way. I have learned to, when this has gone on, I have learned to say very quietly, I will leave them to the universe to be handled. I will never raise a hand.
Oh, have you evolved?
Wow, great.
And
oh, do I envy you?
Well, it is, it's listening to you, reading you. But two have resulted in death out of the clear blue, and I felt nothing whatsoever. Two people had very much power. Right now, one was stripped. He's no longer a judge. And the other one, without mentioning names, is the attorney who wound up in jail. It's a very...
You have some very interesting friends.
Well...
and lots of protection, right.
My friends are now telling me we will be very nice.
Or stay on your good side.
You can have.
Dorothy, I hope you call all the time. You're a wonderful person.
No, but this is a funny thing. I have no compunction of sorrow for the two that died. In fact, I said to the person, she was harassing me, and I said to a friend of hers, please, she can ill afford a heart attack. Not meaning that I was going to do anything, it's just meaning that please warn her to leave me alone. She died within 2 months, never had a heart problem. She died in the doctor's office of a heart attack.
Well, you're leaving it alone, and that's the best way.
I will never raise a hand to anyone, but it's a funny feeling when you're very vicious to me. It seems that I don't know. Is there something? I had been told by two psychics that in my past lives I was an extremely powerful woman. I don't know what happened in this lifetime. I lost it all completely.
Well, I'd say that you're pretty powerful now if you can just kill somebody by thinking about them.
Or you have some powerful friends.
Yes.
No. But is there a connection of anything or is it just leaving it to the universe that the universe knows far more what to do than I would ever know to, say, get even?
That's right. I think it was, kind of their time. It's not that retribution comes so swiftly, just that you're really evolving now, you're loving, you're forgiving, you're letting things go, and you don't have to worry. That's the main thing. It's not so much punishment as it is that it was their time. I just think that you're on the right track now, and keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
I thank you both.
Okay.
Good night.
Sandy in Lauderhill, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Am I on?
Yes.
My name is Sandy,
And a strange thing happened this evening. I was sitting in my family room reading Through Time into Healing. I just completed Many Lives, Many Masters last week. It was a little premature because I haven't quite reached the section on obesity and the sources and obesity and substance abuse. And I was wondering if the doctor could maybe talk about it a little bit so that when I do get to that section, I am a member of one of the 12-step programs. And I just started working the steps, and I'm trying very earnestly to grasp and believe and, Well, this is called like synchronicity, things happening at the same time. I found with obesity and with substance abuse that sometimes the roots are in the past. They're ancient. For example, with obesity and eating disorders, the wife of a physician in Miami came in to see me, a different woman from the fear of water and the darkness.
You have a number of physicians' wives who come to see you.
One of the referrals.
That means something. But go ahead.
I think maybe I'm a doctor. No. And she was working through something else, but has always been 40 pounds overweight, something like that. Very attractive woman. She asked me if we could look at this, and we did, and found her, in going back, as a beautiful American Indian woman, long black hair, very beautiful, stolen and raped by a warrior from another tribe because of her beauty. Not killed, but she resolved at that time never to be attractive to men again. And she wasn't. She had nothing in this life to explain it, but she was keeping on that weight as protection. See, and 12 steps and substance abuse and spirituality is all related, the protection and the devices people go to protect themselves. She was then able to lose that weight and keep it off. It's been 3 years now. So sometimes in eating disorders and in other substance abuse problems, for example, abusing alcohol in the 19th century may predispose one to use it now because they found out that's a way out. But it's not the way out, and that's why finding higher power or what the 12 steps lead to is so important. So many similarities. But you'll get to that soon. That's the next chapter, so I don't want to give it away. I'm about a chapter and a half ahead of you tonight. But I've racked my brain, and I've racked my brain trying to figure out what caused my eating disorder, and I just can't remember anything back in my immediate past. You're going to find out in about an hour. Oh. You'll see the next chapter, right. Well, I won't go back to the book until the program's over tonight, so I probably won't get back to the book.
We're just about saying goodnight, so you have time to go back to read now.
Oh,
This is great.
It is great because I was sitting reading the book and the phone rang, and it was a friend of my wife's calling to tell her that you were on the radio.
Well,
not knowing that I was reading the book right now.
That's funny. Thank your wife's friend, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian, I don't want this night to end. I could talk to you for the next 20 hours. That's what always happens whenever I'm with you. Brian's new book, Through Time into Healing. And, of course, you can still get his first book in paperback, Many Lives, Many Masters. You are one extraordinary human being. You really
thank you, Sandy. You are, too. And I think that since the phone lines are still going, I'll have to come back another time.
Well,
you
better.
People on the line.
He has said that, but you better, because you were here regularly over the... Well, even before your book was written, on and off for the last 20-some-odd years, you've been coming on my program.
Yeah, we've been doing this for years, sleep disorders, whatever.
Right, but this is phenomenal, and I'm so glad this happened to you so that you can have it happen to us. Thank you. And I thank all of you very much, and hopefully you'll be with me tomorrow night and every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 p.m. on the Sandy Payton program. Please make it a habit. Please tell your friends we are here, and love to hear from you, and look forward to speaking with you tomorrow night on the Sandy Payton program. WMRZ, good night.